Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, sir. Can you hear us okay?
Yep, no, I can hear you just fine. Just wanted to test the mic there. Everybody hear me?
Yep, we hear you okay. We haven't quite started yet, so I'm going to place you on mute for just a moment.
No problem. Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
For signature, I can email it. It's in there. It's in OneDrive. The resolution's in OneDrive? Yes, sir. In the budget folder, but it's not in an individual folder. It's in that budget folder. It's in this budget folder? Yes.
All right. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We're missing Cardi. I understand he's online or he's watching us. And then Dustin just running a couple minutes behind. Do need to adopt an agenda. The only one that I'd like to add is number 4, and that is Resolution 2025-3, which is an extension to the tax deadline.
That would be, we can do wherever you would like, Mr. Chairman. That is what currently is item 3C.
Oh, excuse me.
No, it's
Excuse
the way
me.
I worded it on there. So
No,
I
I
will make sure we
apologize.
put resolution beside that.
And no, I have no additions. Anybody else have any additions? What would you all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Public comment. Public comment. Lots of public. That's pretty good. That's one more than normal for us. All right, let's go right into it. Let's do, Tracy, talk to us about economic development and tourism's budget. Oh, yeah.
I'll go get you one. Please let the gentleman get it. I'm walking off these calories because I'm not dancing anymore.
I thought you didn't eat any of those cookies before we got here.
I'm not dancing, so I gotta have some exercise.
Okay. We have very little changes for economic development. In fact, we cut some back. We had things left on there, like there was a $200 sign maintenance type thing that we've had on there forever, longer than I've actually been at the county. So got rid of that, cut some things back just from historical data. Other than that, everything remains pretty much the same.
I would say the COLA is really the only thing that the 2.5% pretty much is the COLA for that department.
All right. All right, anybody have questions for Tracy, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. Tracy, when are we going to get the presentation from on the site planning,
Site readiness?
site readiness planning, excuse me?
That is up to you, because they were talking about coming in April. If you want them to come, do you want to come the second meeting? I'm actually at a conference next week.
Probably
But we could try to
second
plan it for the second meeting.
meeting. Clay, is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, I'll see if I can get them
You
then.
gonna add that to the agenda for the second
We
meeting?
can, so I just need to know what order you want some things. You all determine where you want. So on the 22nd, we will have your tax rates and administrative fees, public hearings. I'm not sure if the 6-year, no, that's in the May. And then you would have a presentation. So you can do them all. If you want the presentation first, it may be more appropriate so they can get in and out, but you tell me how you want the agenda and we'll make it happen. So what I'm hearing, if not any objection, that site plan discussion or presentation will be April 22nd.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Let us think about where we wanna put them on their agenda,
All
but
right. I'm assuming, Tracy, you're confirming that as we speak? Okay, all right.
Do we want 6?
It's a 6 o'clock
Six,
meeting,
yeah.
yes, ma'am.
yeah, we need to talk about agenda placement of that. I understand getting people out of here, but if we've got public in here, then I'd rather
Right.
get public in and out so it doesn't waste their whole evening.
Right.
All right, we've got that one. We'll get to agenda here shortly. Anybody else have anything on this, on Tracy's budget? Anybody? All right, thank you, Tracy.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Jonathan, why don't you lead us off with Davenport?
All right, I'm going to do a little icebreaker, if you will, and I'll probably do some segue also to Ms. Warren, because she's had direct contact. I believe we have Kyle online, and I'm not sure, maybe Gracie,
Yep.
but he can give introductions when Jennifer introduces Davenport. You may recall, I think it was even back in late fall, we planned on needing some financial analysis. There are things we can do internally, and Jennifer does well, pretty much everything. But we needed some analysis from a looking forward, not just, 1 year, but, 5 years or more. Revenues, expenditures, which a lot of good work Mr. Jewett had mentioned in economic development plan, but also on taking a look at your overall operational increases, where you're tracking, as well as capital. And should you do pay-go, how do you fund these things? So you had an initial draft, I want to say probably back in January. Jennifer and Davenport have had some additional follow-ups that's led to this presentation today. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Weekly. The only thing I wanted to add, on March 24th, I met with Davenport. We discussed, after having all of the budget presentations and outside agency applications and putting all of that into our mass budget spreadsheet and really knowing what all in, all requests, no cutbacks looks like for opening balance appropriation and capital, that is when I had the discussion with Kyle and Gracie to update you on the worst-case scenario and what it looks like with our fund balance and what kind of strategies they would recommend. So I just wanted to give a little background on the timing on when I met with them, and it was after we've had all of the input from everybody. So I guess at this point, I'll turn it over to Kyle Locks from Davenport.
Yep, thanks Jennifer. And everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got you.
Very good. Hey, Mr. Chair, how are you? Nice to speak with you. Kind of see you in a distance.
There you go. I'm looking better from a distance. Thank you for being with us. You just want to start walking through the PowerPoint, Kyle?
Absolutely. Yep. We're perfecting the concept of being in two places at once. We appreciate being able to be electronic today. Look forward to seeing you in person in the future. So I think to both Jonathan and Jennifer's point, we did a much larger presentation in January. We've been talking back and forth that Jennifer mentioned. So what we have for you today is a much more targeted, just a couple concepts for you. And so we'll walk you through that. It, as Jennifer said, is at least from our maybe perspective, is worst case, given that very much in the budget deliberation. But we want to call out a couple points for you and give you a couple strategies to think about going forward, especially as it relates to two things. We'll talk about two big picture things. One is fund balance, and the other is capital funding going forward. So those are really the two primary topics of discussion for the presentation today. So I'm looking at least on the screen here. If we went to page 4, for
Hey, Kyle,
whomever.
can you pause just one moment? I apologize. I'm having a hard time getting this PDF to advance. Just give me a second. Okay, it's advancing now. I'm on the background slide. I'm not sure if you can see what we see, but we're on the background slide. Just let me know where you want me to go.
Yep. Just go Jennifer to slide 4, bottom right corner. There you go. You can see it at a distance. So as we mentioned, two big picture topics today. The first we'll talk about is fund balance. And so you may recall when we're talking January, even years past, fund balance is arguably the most important financial measurement metric that we look at as your outside advisors and then other outside entities, whether banks, lenders, the state, whomever, looks at it as a good barometer of your financial health. And it's been very strong for a number of years. What we are seeing, though, and it comes through on this page, is between 2024, 2025, the year we're in right now, and moving into this 26 time period that you're in the throes of planning for, we're seeing a decline in that fund balance. And you can see that in the top right-hand part of the page with that red arrow. As Jennifer said, hopefully that is conservative in terms of where that trend is going. But it's clearly going down. And that to us is your, again, outside advisor, while you're not in trouble, far from it, it is a concerning trend. We'd really like to see that stabilize at a minimum level above policy. And it looks to us, as we look at your budgets, talk a bunch with Jonathan and Jennifer, it's really driven by getting this decline in fund balance is driven a lot by capital funding. And knowing that we're coming out of this time period whereby we've had a number of very good years, we've had stimulus programs, so forth and so on. Those dollars that are over and above policy are really basically spoken for entirely. And the trick right now, as we've talked to Jennifer, that on a going forward basis, meaning starting FY 2026, we as a county don't really have any recurring source of revenue to take on the new capital projects that you as a county have identified. And so what we're really showing on this page, well, it may be hopefully conservative. I suspect it'll come out better than this. What it's really showing is if your 25 budget ends exactly as it was budgeted, and then your 26 budget, which relies for the moment on a fair amount of fund balance, a substantial fund balance to fund capital, we could in fact be below the financial policy. We suspect in reality, once you work your way through the budget process, Mr. Chair, and others, that won't be the case. But again, we want to just, as we do the simple math, and take things through the continuum of a couple of years, it's a trend we see. And so that begs to us the question, okay, what other way do we have as a county to move forward with projects that you've identified that will not result in our fund balance continuing to decline to levels that might be at or below our policy? So that's really the couple points we want to make on that page. So if we move forward, Jennifer, we talked for a minute on page 5 on why unassigned fund balance is important. I won't read this word for word, Mr. Chair. But basically, again, it's arguably the most important financial measurement. It's also right now spinning off very nice interest income for you. And so for every dollar that fund balance declines, it is an interest income that you're not getting. So it's just a variety of reasons we want to maintain, protect that. Not the least of which there is some economic uncertainty out there. Want to make sure you've got good contingency and good cushion for surprise. Page 6 just outlines specifically what policy is. Again, Mr. Chair, I won't read this word for word. But basically, your policy says you want to be at 18% in terms of that fund balance. And if we take the math from 25 in your proposed 26 budget, we could see ourselves as a county potentially breaching that level. And so again, don't want to beat the proverbial dead horse there. But we really want to protect against that. So I think Jennifer, keep going. Page number 7 in terms of the observations, really just laying out specifically some of the dollars. 2025 budget was $2.5 million of cash funded capital. 2026 proposed for the moment, it's about $4 million of cash funded capital. And while cash funded capital in a vacuum is a positive, again, we're in this situation where the dollars to fund that have been coming from the fund balance. We don't have a recurring source that we know of to fund those. So we want to look at some different options. Okay, so Jennifer, I think if we flip over to go right to page 9. There we go. So page 9, we'll start to look at in summary form the CIP as it's been given to us. So you see at the top of the page, about $22.5 million over the next 5 years, meaning 2026 to 2030. You can see in total and summary of that, about 13.2 million in schools, about 9.1 million in county. Add those two together, that's where you get roughly 22.5 million in the aggregate over the 5-year time period. If you go to the bottom of the page, what we really want to focus on today is really the next 2 years. Always like a good 5-year forecast. It strikes us that you're in the midst of really trying to hone in on what the 26 budget looks like. And so the focus in the next couple pages is going to be, how do we really think about stuff that is very much front and center for us as a county, which is FY26, and then the following year, FY27. So those 2 years in total, Again, it was given to us about 4.8 million in 26, about 7 million in 27. So you got about 11.8. Round up a bit. You get about $12 million over those next 2 years, split out between the schools and the county. That again, how do we think about getting those done? We're purposely not getting into the detail of your budget. You, as a board, with your excellent staff, to work on specific projects that are there. But working with about $12 million in the aggregate. Flip the page to page 10. So on page 10, what we've done, Mr. Chair and others, is we've run two different scenarios. As we start a little bit closer to what's within the CIP, it struck us as you go to that table in the middle of the page, you've got a fair amount of equipment and vehicles that are within those categories. You can see equipment, you get about 2.7 million in 26, about 900,000 in 27. Vehicles, 899,000 in 26, and $1 million in 27. And then there's some other capital there in 26, 27 as well. And so what we looked at is knowing it's been a number of years since you've borrowed dollars for capital, because you've had very good number of years between getting some stimulus dollars and other things. It's really been a while since you've had to borrow any dollars. So from a leverage debt position, the county's in good shape. And so we looked at two different scenarios, and those scenarios at the top of the page. Scenario one is if you as a county went forward and we funded via borrowing the full amount of projects that are identified between 26 and 27. It's about $11.9 million. It's easier to talk about, just call it about 12 million. It's not for us to say which of those projects are higher priority or lower. That's certainly Mr. Chair, you, the board, and your staff. We just want to kind of give you an order of magnitude sense. So scenario one, $12 million. Scenario two, so you know what if we only did the vehicles and equipment that have been identified in those 2 years? That's about $5.5 million. So the goal here is to give you an order of magnitude sense. If we were to go forward and borrow some dollars, conserve the fund balance, keep it above the policy, what does that look like? And how might that get done with much less of an impact to your budget, your fund balance, than if this was all cash funded? So we can go to the next page. So the way we've thought about doing that is doing some flexible interim financing. We talked a little bit about this back in January. Because you have a range of different projects, you've got vehicles, you've got some other capital, some building updates, et cetera. One of the strategies we like is to get you as a county dollars sooner rather than later that are set up so you've got a lot of flexibility as to how they're used. Again, because you're not in your CIP identifying one or two big projects, it's a whole list of different types of projects. In reality, we'll probably need money at different times during the year. You have to order things at different times during the year. So part of the thought process here is let's try and get a financing structure in place that gives you enough latitude and flexibility that as a board, as a staff, you can work your way through the next couple of years with all the variety of different types of projects and not have a bunch of piecemeal different types of financing. Do it all in one much more efficient financing structure. And this, Mr. Chair and other members of the board, pretty similar to what we did back in the 2020 time period, trying to package together a bunch of needs into one efficient type of financing. So Interim financing, we basically borrow for, under this scenario, 2 years worth of needs. So you really have 2 fiscal years that you're set with. It's about $12 million, again, rounding up at 11.9 to 12. When we've done that, we've purposely used higher than current market interest rates. So for the moment, we've assumed a 5% interest rate for that interim financing. If you did this soon, we expect it to be less than that. We always like to play on the conservative side. And the way it would work is we'd borrow that interim financing, call it in the summertime. Once your budget's adopted, once you know as a board where your priorities really are, again, we'd be protecting the fund balance and give yourself basically 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years to work your way through the projects, build them, pay for them, order the ambulances, the school buses, sheriff's vehicles, all those variety of things that all have their own timing. And then as we get probably into the 2028, maybe even 2029 time period, we would term out, meaning permanently finance that interim financing. For today's analysis, we've assumed that permanent financing, which would occur in about 3 years, is repaid over a 7-year term. So in total, this total financing structure is about a 10-year term, which is pretty short. As we get some more detail on the exact projects in here, we could probably lengthen this out a little bit. But again, we want to be mindful of the types of projects and equipment and vehicles we're financing, so we don't want to push that too far out. So that's kind of the strategy here. Again, conserve fund balance, borrow some dollars responsibly in a fixed rate kind of mode, give you some flexibility to work through these next couple of years of capital projects, and lessen the impact on the budget versus trying to take all of this on cash funding. So if we flip the page, just show you visually, if indeed we were to go forward with something that looked like this, you can see, I'll look at the graph on the right-hand side. Dark green bars is your existing debt service. That's what you've got on the books right now. You're paying about $1.7 million a year in debt service. The blue bars, they're pretty small on that graph. Those are the interest payments on the interim financing. So one of the benefits of interim financing is it lets us have a pretty nominal impact to your budget for a couple of years while you are working through a couple budget cycles, trying to grow the revenues, so forth and so on. So it gives us a couple years to build into it. Then the light green bars that you see kick in fiscal year 2028, that's when that interim financing is quote unquote termed out, meaning that's when we convert that to full principal and interest. And for this analysis, is assume that's repaid over 7 years. Again, the theory being a lot of what's within your CIP is vehicles and equipment, and we want to tie the useful life, or excuse me, you want to tie the final maturity of the financing, roughly speaking, to the useful life of the projects. We can go a little bit longer potentially. We just want to give a little more conservative look for you for the moment. So in total, your debt service goes from what is about $1.7 million right now to about $3.8 million, but it does that over the next 4 fiscal years. So you've got a couple years to build up to it. If we flip one more page to page 13. So this is what we'll call kind of the rubber meets the road page. Budgetarily, what might that look like? Again, Mr. Chair, members of the board, you're obviously in a position where you're setting the budget, you're setting the tax rate, so forth and so on. So as we look at this page, that's an important caveat. Because what we're showing on this page is if indeed we take on some additional debt service over the next couple of years, and as a result, we need to increase the dollars that are allocated to debt service in the budget. If the only way we had to do that was the real estate tax rate, what is the impact to the real estate tax rate? So that's what's showing you really in column F, as we say there, under this scenario, borrowing about $12 million, it's the equivalent of about 3.5 pennies in 2026 and an additional 3 pennies in 2027. Purposely spread over a couple of years to allow you time to build up to it. And again, it assumes that the only place you have to generate that new revenue is the real estate tax rate. In reality, there's a variety of different revenues that are at your discretion as the county. In addition to, as you think about schools, a concept that's not going to work out this year has been talked about a couple of years in terms of a 1% sales tax that made its way through both the House and the Senate. Governor vetoed it. There's a sense that will likely, well, the dust hasn't cleared on this budget cycle, and will likely come back up in future years. So part of our theory and strategy here is to give you as a county a couple of years to build into revenues, and also knowing that there may be some additional revenue opportunities to pay for capital projects, especially on the school side, into the future. Just want to give those sort of caveats there as we look at that page. As we go to the next page, this is the debt ratio side of things, really ours as a county-owned self-imposed policies. So making sure that if we move forward with something like this, are we in compliance with our policies? The answer here is yes. Left-hand side, you've got debt to assessed value. You can see your plenty of daylight there, which in our world is capacity relative to that ratio. On the right-hand side is debt service to expenditures. And you can see there it does build up over a couple of years. But again, we've used a pretty conservative, meaning quick payoff structure for purposes of running these numbers. And you'd still have additional capacity over and above that into the future. So I'll pause there, Mr. Chair. See if there's any questions, any comments. We've got another scenario to walk you through, but I just want to pause and adjust that.
Would like to just note that if you have a breakdown of the $12 million number in front of you. Just want to make sure you do have a printout of that. So, thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Our fixed fund balance, it's our unassigned balance, that's being held in the bank, obviously. It's not stock market related as far as going up or down. We lose money that way. So it's gaining us money, interest rate, I'm assuming. Is that interest rate fixed? Or does that go up and down with the...
I would have to ask the treasurer. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know there's a fund, and Kyle, you might know the answer to this, that she puts most of the cash flow in, that generates a pretty good amount of interest that a lot of local counties use. But it's not.
I can speak.
Oh, there's Stephanie.
Right. No, nothing in the stock market. I can assure you. It's pretty much, I mean, we have money in LGIP, the Virginia Investment Pool, some in our local banks, but we are not in the stock market.
So the stock market doesn't affect the balance, but we do. So, but we are using an interest rate, obviously, right, with the banks.
Right. I mean, it's not going to stay. I mean, it varies, but right now we're getting, for like LGIP and Virginia Investment Pool around 4.5%.
I just want it's just a silly question. I just want to make sure that money was safe with everything that's going on.
Oh yes. I couldn't sleep if it wasn't.
I didn't think so.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's go ahead, Mr.
Anybody else got anything?
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification. Now, we're looking at, I assume, borrowing money before we need it. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I got comments on this too. Go ahead, please.
And then my question is, let's just assume that that's what we did. we're not committed to it, but let's assume, can that money be placed into these interest-bearing accounts to offset the interest that we're getting charged?
Kyle?
Absolutely. Yep, I'll jump in there real quick. And you've actually preempted a couple slides. We've got it back, which if you go back to, I'll show you the visual. The short answer is yes. So page 19 and 20 are important slides, exactly to all these various comments here. So the treasurer's point, between the LGIP, the VIP, those are probably earning about 4.5, 4.25 in the current market. Treasurer should correct me if I'm a smidge off there, but we look at that a lot. So it's earning very nice interest earnings for the county, which another reason, one of our recommendations, easier for us to say than, as outsiders, maintaining that fund balance is important. Because again, it's earning real dollars in the 4 to probably 4.5% range and overnight money. Into the board's question, in terms of when you go borrow dollars like this in a strategy like this, can you reinvest it? The answer is yes. And there's another state program that's called SNAP that if we flip one more page, let's give you a visual here. So the SNAP program is run by the state, very specialized, allowing the state and local governments to invest the money that they have borrowed on a tax-exempt basis. There's all kinds of rules and restrictions that go with tax-exempt borrowing. And so in this market, we could borrow dollars and reinvest them at a rate that is probably equivalent to, for conversation purposes, the borrowing rate. So say for a moment we go borrow, it's maybe a 4.5% interest rate. We can put that into this SNAP program and basically cover the interest cost while the money is being spent down. The last time as a county we went and did a financing was not the case. The SNAP program, you kind of see this visual on the graph, was earning pretty darn close to zero. And so one of the advantages of pooling together some projects into one cohesive package is you've also got a core of dollars that can be reinvested in a program like the SNAP program. And basically, while the money may not be used immediately, it can be reinvested. The interest earned would offset the interest cost of the financing. When we've run our numbers and budgetary impact, we've assumed none of those interest earnings on purpose. You could argue we're overly conservative. At least we don't want to count on the chickens before they hatch that way. So the reality of the potential FY 2026 impact is it could be much less than that if indeed dollars are borrowed, reinvested, and the interest earnings is used to help cover the cost of the borrowing itself, meaning the interest rate.
Mr. Chairman, may I interject real quick? The Supervisor Jewett's question, or I believe it's Supervisor Jewett just raised it. You're going to have options, and Kyle's getting ready to go to scenario 2. I mean, obviously one of those options is don't borrow any, and that's your all's choice. So either way, whether it's 12 or 6 or whatever, it's putting together what I would say your projects that you would like to see. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I want to explain some of my logical methodology. I'm always looking at assets that are long-term. I mean, financing of 5 years. But Cal's going to get into some vehicle stuff, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. He's going to have some good explanations. But if you were going to borrow money, then, you would probably say, all right, staff, what are you recommending? What I would say then group things together. Maybe it's windows instead of, a gym window at school board office. Maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's you're grouping all your paving together. So that's generally when you go through projects and you determine if you want to debt service or not, that's kind of where staff would need direction on. So we haven't put a group looking, out beyond FY26. We have that 5-year plan. which is what Kyle was given, and he's at that 19 or $22 million number, is based on that 5-year outlook. FY '26, you would determine, I think we talked about a membrane roof and maybe some small level stuff. So your choice. This is just looking at big picture of what we gave them, and then determining, does debt financing fit what you would like to do? Is it a mixture of fund balance, a mixture of debt service? Is it a mixture of leasing versus purchase? So that's really overall part of that discussion and your determination of that.
Ms. Murray, do you have something? Ms. Murray?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was having a little problem there. Well, of course, our money that we borrowed in 2020 was in SNAP as well, and we still have funds in SNAP. And we've earned interest on that money as well while we were spending down. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Kyle, back to you.
Yes, sir.
We want to go back. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. I'll run relatively quickly through the second scenario because they're very similar in terms of pages, but in this scenario, I think everybody's point here is not for us to tell you what projects are. So we're trying to give you order of magnitude what this might look like. And so the second scenario, instead of $12 million, it's $6 million. So effectively half the size of the borrowing. All the same assumptions are made. In terms of interest rate, it's purposely above the current market, so forth and so on. So if we flip the page, you see here that same look, or that same picture of if a $6 million borrow is done, current debt service is about 1.7 million. That goes to about 2.8 million, but does so over what is basically about 4 fiscal years. So in the grand scheme of things, it's an impact, but you've got a number of years to take care of it. And I think Mr. Weekly's point, we try to err on the conservative side. So again, might that dollar amount in terms of the debt service be smaller? If in the final analysis, the projects are looked at and say, hey, maybe we've got 12 or 14 years of useful life in there. That's all a possibility. We just wanted to give you an order of magnitude estimate. We go to the next page. This gets back to what we call that penny analysis. And so there's 2 pennies in fiscal year 2026. But again, just to reiterate, what that assumes is that we've got interest cost, but we've not assumed any interest earnings. You can argue maybe we're being overly conservative, but if we did have interest earnings, which you would, that equivalent impact, or the impact of the budget, would be much less than that. And it's probably also worth just pointing out the dollars here. So the interest in 2026, in terms of the cost side of things, would be about $155,000. So just maybe put that in perspective. Sometimes we focus on that tax equivalent impact. It's about $155,000 is the interest, and then you can see what the payments do in terms of grow over the next couple of years. So all of the idea here is to give you as a board, the county, an option that would be efficient. To the extent you move forward with some or all of these things, the concept basically of borrowing and packaging together projects is much more efficient than sort of ad hoc, taking on a project at a time. One question that was asked was the difference between leasing and paying cash. I think that was one of the maybe big picture questions that we were asked to address today. And I would answer that in terms of when you think about whether it's a lease or a loan or a bond issue, whatever you want to call it, at this level in terms of working on your budget, it's really a question of do we pay cash or do we borrow some dollars? And a borrowing, if it happens, if it's the will of the board, could be a lease, could be bond issue, could be interim financing. But I think really where we see the county headed right now is you've had a number of very good years of being able to pay cash for lots of things. And we'd really like to see you protect and conserve that fund balance as much as possible. And so we're kind of in that cycle of recommending to you that in lieu of digging any further into your fund balance, we look to do some limited borrowing that's strategic and allows you a lot of flexibility to build into it over a couple of years for a whole basket of projects, and not trying to do things sort of piecemeal and ad hoc. So we'll flip one more page. Page 18 just shows those same policies. You can see on that page you're in compliance with both of those policies. And the light green bars, which is the projected or proposed new debt service, is half of the level as in the first scenario, which makes sense. First scenario, we borrowed $12 million. Second scenario here, we're borrowing $6 million. So I'll pause there, Mr. Chair. Again, see if there's any questions, thoughts, comments.
Hey, Kyle, the chairman and I spoke briefly before the start of this meeting, and I think it would be a good time to kind of weigh in. His question was, if the board should elect to do any debt service or financing, is this, the mechanism, commercial paper loan, bonds, what would be the instrument to do so?
Yep, very good question. So, given what we've been given in terms of CIP, what we would think about is something very similar to what you did in 2020, which is to go competitively bid to banks I'll use the term loan. The term loan, lease, bond gets thrown around a lot, but I think the marketplace we'd be looking to would primarily be the banking marketplace. And what we like to do there is put all of the banks, in essence, into competition. Gives us a lot of flexibility. It allows us to go bid something out and bring back the results before you need to make a decision on it. It also allows us to bundle a bunch of different projects together so that you aren't having to deal with one lease from one vendor, another lease from another vendor. There's school buses, there's ambulances, so forth and so on. Packaging things together into a competitive bid financing structure almost always makes the most sense.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions for Kyle on this, please?
Kyle, this is Supervisor Jewett. Question on the repayment schedule. And again, I'm not sure, I realize it's aggregated in an average, but my concern is that if you are borrowing for these vehicles, shouldn't the repayment schedule match their estimated life? Have you taken that into account?
The answer to both questions is yes. And again, we're working at this point with what I'll call kind of big picture numbers, but should the repayment schedule match the useful life? It should. And so if we were to move forward and refine this some more, we would likely refine the schedule such that, for instance, an ambulance has a longer useful life than a sheriff's vehicle. School buses have longer useful life than sheriff's vehicles. Maintenance to buildings almost certainly has longer useful lives than the vehicles. And so we would refine these to come to a point where we'd probably use an average, but get to a point where the financing term, or the repayment term, aligns with the useful life of the underlying project. You don't necessarily need to do that on a project-by-project basis, but we would look at the overall basket and make sure that makes sense. Again, you don't want to be paying for something in 10 years that you used up in 4 years. And likewise, you don't pay for something over 4 years that you'll be using for 10 or 15 years. So we would take that into account.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions for Kyle? Where else do you want to go, Kyle?
That's really what we had, Mr. Chair. Again, I think.
Can I just ask one question? This is Supervisor Buchanan. And
Yes, sir.
can you do ballot measures for bonds? Or, we have certain needs, like in the school or the government buildings, and we need to raise money that way. Could it be a temporary ballot measure where you add pennies on per hundred?
Great question.
For a certain thing, and then it goes away.
Yes and no, in that you certainly can do a ballot measure. The instrument of that would allow you to borrow on a general obligation basis. If you as a board wanted to, tie a specific amount of pennies in the real estate tax rate to that borrowing ballot measure, you could do that. We typically tend to see those most for things like schools, larger projects where you really want to need to get the community buy-in, and thus take those to the voters. You don't tend to see it for things like vehicles and equipment, that at some level, since for us to say, but practically speaking, a lot of this type of equipment is sort of non-optional at some level. You have to have working sheriff's vehicles, you have to have working ambulances. So the risk of taking something to a ballot measure with the types of projects you're looking at is if it fails, odds are at some level you're going to have to come up with money to at some point, replace a lot of the types of things that is identified in the CIP. So can you do it? You can. Do we often see it for something like this? No, we don't. Tends to be reserved more for projects whereby there's going to be a major investment for things that you want to make sure you get the good community buy-in for those. So hopefully it's a little helpful perspective.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And I think Supervisor Buchanan, as Kyle just said, and I'm not saying it's on this list, but it is big ticket item. If you're major renovations of government buildings and/or schools or building new schools, that would be kind of, where you would lead to on that. And to Cal's point, the bill that, I forget the bill number, but that was out there for the 1% levy for school construction pending voter referendum did die by the governor's veto pen. So the objective there was, if it were to pass and this board said, yes, let's put it on a voter referendum, if the voters overwhelmingly support it, you would be able to, do that, and that monies would then flow just for that purpose. I do believe there's some monies that may be made available for grants for constructions. I'm still tracking that down. That was in the governor's budget. I don't know if that's a weighted type of grant, but we're going to check into that. So, because we do need some additional funding beyond Madison County to get those larger ticket items taken care of.
Yeah, and to Mr. Weekly's point, that's another reason as we think about sort of the financing, call it strategy and structure that we've at least laid out here is, we equated everything to real estate tax rates. But if you get 2 years down the line, something like this sales tax passes, where that's worked in other local governments, and it's worked in, I think, 10 of them, that legislation has allowed you very clearly to pay debt service. It allows you to pay for capital. I've seen some drafts of the bill that did die this year that would allow you to back and pay yourself back for some capital. And so you clearly have school projects within the list of your CIP. And so the flexibility to have some interim financing, have that in place, let some of these variables play out, and then to the extent that more optimistic realm, you've got a new revenue stream, being able to tie that permanent financing to a potential new revenue stream. That's also one of the possibilities we were thinking about in this overall strategy and structure.
Comments, Ms. Warren?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, I would, again, just like to reiterate that when Kyle and I, Mr. Locks and I met, we really discussed looking at all requests with school and county CIP, knowing that there were going to be things that shift to the right or things that we might not do or might be lower price, but it's good to get something for the board to see with kind of the all-in look. So thank you, Kyle, for putting that together for us on a quick basis this week.
Happy to do it. It's helpful.
All right. Who else has comments or questions? Mike, I'm sitting down here grimacing, and I appreciate Miss Warren's comments over there. It's not at you, Kyle, at all. I think it's more on our side. Some of these items on the CIP list, looking at this sheet that has it all laid out based on prices, I mean, you've got big ticket dollar items on there that are just not going anywhere. I certainly am not going to vote for some of these items. I would hope that everybody else is not going to vote for some of these items. The glaring one that shoots out to me is Hoover Ridge taking $1.9 million of a $5 million capital improvement. We've put in our money for that at this junction. The idea of just using county money to fulfill something like that is truly discretionary and that they are raising money in a very diligent way for, I just see that as a big skew on this whole thing. In going through some of these items, I mean, I like that CIP committee like crazy because we can talk about these things and we really know forecasting moving forward on different capital expenditures that we are going to have. There are new items on this, things that we have never talked about before, and I'm sure there's some of that in that Davenport report. But I think that having administration work with Kyle and Davenport and giving that all-in picture is very, very good. But we have to go through this list and call this list in a super heavy way. I mean, the one that kicks out to me, that just an easy one, is that 644 on the repointing of Waverly Yao. We don't have other things that take priority over this. I mean, I certainly think we do. I mean, and then you go down to that middle column and just utilizing this FY26 budget that we are talking about currently, we know at this point, we're only talking about one bus, aren't we?
We're going to get to that point, Mr. Chairman, but maybe now's the time.
Yeah,
going through each capital project or list for FY26, whether it's schools or county, we are certainly prepared to do that. But this right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Warren, is initially looking in before revisions.
Sure. That's right.
Mr. Chairman, point of
Please.
privilege. Is there anything else for Davenport before you get into deeper discussions?
No. Anything else? Kyle, thank you very, very much. We will certainly be in touch soon.
Sounds good, Mr. Chair. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Yes, sir. You too. Well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but I think that we've got to.
You want to go 3D?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I mean, we're talking about financing for capital improvements. Skipping through all this other stuff and then coming back does not seem to be straight on this. Start on the left side of the paper, Jonathan, and let's walk through some of these items, because I mean, let's walk through some of these and explain where we're at.
Is this a better view, or do we have a view like this you want to go? All right, and is some of this lease versus purchase?
Yes, so one thing to keep in mind on the printout is this is all obviously purchase and not lease of the EMS equipment.
Yeah, can you give us numbers that we not plug into this, but we can at least, on my side, I'd like to augment my notes. Next to some of these, like cardiac monitor, what's the lease option on it? And going down into the mechanical CPR device, were we buying or leasing it as well?
Yeah, I did get numbers from Chief Hillstrom on what the lease amounts would be for FY '26 for the cardiac monitor and mechanical CPR, so I can give you those. I'll look them up while you're going through the list.
All right. All right, Shoot.
Maybe as Jennifer's looking that up.
yeah.
As Jen, let me go use my microphone. As Jennifer's looking that up, can I at least cover some basic on the building side and
Yeah.
not maybe equipment side?
Yeah,
And then
that's
she can
fine.
pull up those additional things. On the county capital side, when it comes to facilities, we had a $50,000 earmark, well, earmark's probably a terrible term, but a placeholder for a membrane roof replacement at the CID building. I would vet to say that would be my priority number one that I would offer to you FY '26. We talked about a $30,000 placeholder in capital for some plating of the concrete wall inside of the tippins or the transfer station. That will give us a longer and preserve the remaining concrete on that wall because it's getting thin as people push things around on it. And then we had left social services in there for their paving. I think that was a some $1,000 number. If that's one you want to forego, we can do that. If you want to forego paving at this facility and the facility down the hill, that certainly is fair. And then that would put your facilities request down to the 50, and I guess about 80-some thousand dollars prior to talking about equipment such as IV pumps and things of that nature. Ms. Warren?
I do have those numbers. To lease the cardiac monitors and the mechanical CPR devices, I'm not sure which one is which, but one is $84,900 in fiscal year '26. One is $19,279 in fiscal year '26 for a total of lease payments totaling $104,179, excuse me, in fiscal year '26. That would go to the operating budget, EMS.
So you would essentially, as Ms. Warren speaking of, in your left column up there, items 2 and 3 are purchases, one at 424.5, one at 128,264. So certainly by going the lease route, your dollar stretches further. The difference is while you drop this off capital, as Jennifer said, the 104,179 would slide into the operation budget because it becomes a lease agreement. So if lease is the way you would like to go, it definitely would help. To Kyle's point, as you saw that red line, you keep pulling more out of your fund balance. It has a degradation and negative effect. So certainly, I think leasing would be the recommendation from staff.
All right, everybody on board on the leasing side on those two items?
Right,
Jim,
the only
please.
caveat is, what is the expected life if we were to buy them versus leasing them every year?
What
I
did
mean,
you
how
say,
often are they
5?
gonna be back
What did you
wanting
say,
another?
5 to 7?
I can see if I can get in touch with Chief Hillstrom by text and see if he knows the answer to
I'm
that.
doing that
He
right
texted me.
now.
All right.
Let me look back at my notes for that. I'll
And
look
then-
back at my notes.
No, I think just on the cash flow side, but I think it's a very valid question we've got to go down. On the county, you said, and I'm working off of this one sheet. You've got 30K for, where is that?
30, so it was in our,
Yeah, that-
let me see if it's on this.
is it part of the county's 174,600 or 1,074,602 at the top?
So the two projects that I spoke of, the 50,000, the CID membrane roof, and the 30,000 for the plating at the transfer station, is that part of that one?
It is. So the
1,074,000?
$1,074,602, I'll explain that number.
Yeah.
That is FY '26 facility study items that Jonathan mentioned, as well as Kyle, Mr. Locks, put anything related to rollover capital that we have, as well as grant monies. I'm not sure why he put the grant monies in there, but he did. He wanted to put an all-in picture of the capital, what those capital items. So that 1,074,000 includes those three things: rollover capital, any grant monies we have left over, which I think is around 300,000 or something like that, 400,000 maybe, and then the facility study. So that number is lower, but he put it all together for that picture.
All right, so it appears that we need to break apart that side and see what the county CIP for FY '26 is. And then, does that make, we know we need to adjust. We'll get a term from Chief Hillstrom on timeline or life expectancy of those the equipments. So we know that the 424 and the 128 are coming down drastically to a total of 104. Was it 104, 179, Ms. Warren?
Yes, that's correct.
Should be. So those two items, we basically have cut off, what, 400K on that? A little bit over that, 450 or something.
And even if you add back the lease, for a bottom line, you're it's another 100,000 in the wrong direction, but still.
But you've still pulled
net
off,
is still dramatic.
huge. The next one going down, and I'm switching between 26 and 27. What is the 490, Brian, for the call handling equipment at the EOC?
That's a scheduled upgrade for the 911 equipment. It was last installed in 21 state, and national standard kind of puts a 5-year note on it. The disclaimer with that one was there will be a grant that is almost, I say almost guaranteed, but it will not cover the full amount.
What kind of percentage could you potentially, nobody's holding you to it, but I mean, the grant, we've got a
200K.
200. So we're gonna cover 2/5 of that with the grant. So we should figure it at the full price with the understanding that there is grant funding available for that, potentially. I think we've talked ourselves to death on the Axon and CAD stuff. I know we have talked about that at this point. I see that as fairly, it's not, everything is expensive, but it is a low dollar, high priority type of item. The server, how many servers do we have that are not related to the courts? I'm asking because we always are hearing about servers, and it's hard to keep track of all of these servers.
I'm not absolutely certain.
Is it three?
Is it 3? Okay.
I can look at the notes from their request real quick.
What we can do is, as well, is get Alan, and we'll have to work with other departments too, because it's all county funding, right, regardless if it's sheriffs or here. So we'll get an inventory for you, because I understand your point. We have several for our ERP systems. We have stuff at 911, we have stuff at CID, so it's hard for us to, but we can get you a list.
No, I thank you.
Yes, sir. And we should have that, quite frankly, as an asset replacement schedule, so.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the notes are 3 physical servers currently being used for our ERP and VMware environments are going to be 5 years old and will need to be replaced. In the near future, the old servers will no longer meet minimum system resources required. The SANs, which is storage area network, will need to be replaced during the same time period. And the quote, they did receive a quote on that for the.
So which of the, I'm guessing that you've said there's 4 servers. Is that right, or are we at 3?
It says 3 physical servers, but then it says the SAN I'm not sure what a SAN.
It's actually a disk array, so it's physical, it's another physical server.
All right, so I think that we should know what we're getting for $129,585. Which one is that?
So the breakdown is twofold for them, them being IT department. The servers are $89,585. That's the quote they received. And then they also have, they're replacing 50 Dell all-in-one desktops they'd like to start replacing them in FY '26 and start with replacing 25 of the 50. So their budget projection for all is 40,000. We could spread probably 20,000 of the 129 in FY '27, but that's the remainder.
All right, stop me if interject at any point.
Chairman, the only thing about this, and I know we discussed, but
They have on the sheet, this was the capital they used prior, they had 89 something for this period.
And if they don't, if there are no legal requirements or no operational bottlenecks, then I think we really should look at cloud hosting versus on-prem servers and look at what the long-term cost is there. 'Cause, you know, I'm just saying, I think that ought to be evaluated.
County servers, we could more than definitely go that direction. The law enforcement side is gonna be a bit more tedious because of things like VSIN and state mandates and things of that nature.
All right, so we're gonna come back with an evaluation of where we're at with the 129,585. What about splitting the 50 desktops for 40K into 2 fiscal years? Does that seem like a reasonable does that seem right? Wait, what? I think that, what it looks like to me is that they're asking for, if the bid's 89, they're asking to replace all 50 of them in the 1 year, aren't they?
The 89 is the servers.
Yeah, but then you tack on the 40K on top of it, and you get to the 129,585, don't you?
So originally, their request was to do all in FY '26, and I brought up the point to them, are you really gonna be able to do all 50 in 1 year? Can we spread it? And they said yes, so
All right.
this number could be
So
updated.
let's,
issue always comes out right now with recycling computers right now is, are the current ones able to migrate to Windows 11? Because that's gonna be required within the next year. If not, then I have a 7-year-old computer in my faculty office that it's still working fine, but it will not upgrade to Windows 11. I hate Windows 11, but I'm just saying, if it's not required, if the current hardware can support Windows 11, there is absolutely no reason, unless machines are 20 years old, which they're not.
they're not.
And definitely that's a multi-year project.
Let's,
Clay, can I-
please,
can
yeah,
I make a suggestion?
I know I'm
apologize.
skewing you like crazy.
No,
but
no,
it's
no, no,
big
my
numbers.
mind might work a little different. If it,
Oh,
pleasure
no.
of the board, if we go to this sheet, so we initially showed you capital, this is schools, this is the summary that has FY '25. It may be an easier view, and it's got some revisions, whether
hell.
when we get to the fleet vehicles or
All right,
we get to
what
foregoing
meeting?
some of these
what-
desktops and buying them through contingency now versus next year. There's
See,
some
that even
different scenarios.
confuses it even more.
But if you want to stick with that list, we'll stick with that list as well.
I think, y'all want to switch over to Jonathan's list, or do you want to work off of this one real quick and see if they can come back at the next budget, next Thursday, with an augment? Does that seem remote?
Yeah, I think the only one, the lease versus purchase, we've gotten direction from you on, so that's good. Let me see if there's any others we need direction on.
The computers,
got
and then the
direction on
question
that.
about whether or not to host in the cloud and how many
Got that
servers
one.
we've got.
That's a good
We've talked about the air handling system, for Waverly Yale, which we have somewhere around 1.4 that we roughly have, and we needed to come up with another 300, is that,
So, to explain that,
please?
that 1.7 is gonna come from fund balance.
Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, the rollover that they
Yes,
have is
there you
in
go.
fund balance.
Okay. So that one, yeah, we've talked about it, that one's a done deal. Also, the fan coil units for the 60K, I think we were replacing 12 of,
That is correct.
it was
12
some,
of 56.
yeah, 12 of 56. Talked about that one, no issue. I've got issue with this AV, the auditorium stuff. I am sure it is needed. It came out of left field on us, and I'm not trying to speak poorly of anybody at the school in any way, but this one's one that we need to talk about this in a little bit greater depth at a CIP level, and then at the school board level, and then coming to this board for that funding. Please.
On schools, And if they say no, then just instead of taking fund balance down. I don't know. I don't know enough about this.
No. Go ahead.
I would, to answer your question, that is a way, if you choose to do so. That would have to go on the ballot to be an item for November. So essentially, you'd have to determine then if they support it, how are you funding it? If it's from fund balance, then you would do a budget amendment and do that. Another appropriate way is that the school would identify these earlier on to get a chance for the joint CIP committee to make a discussion or a vote or whatever as a recommendation to this body, so you can have some time in advance of, say, today's meeting, which we're a little later with capital, to discuss it. So I think those are two options. So certainly, your question, that is one option you could do.
I would ask them to take it from the fund balance, because that's what I'm trying not to do, right? What I'm trying to do is, and I don't know if you can do this, but can you just say for this 1.752 for the makeup air units, can that be, you raise your property taxes, just that, whatever it is, how many pennies it is for that 1 year to pay for this, and then it goes away. I don't know.
Let's check with Hannon and see what the rules are on putting things as voter referendums.
I mean, I
go
think
ahead.
on that, if you can do that a different, another way is also, you could put in, because we always have a budget narrative that you'll have from me, or a budget synopsis, whatever we call it, and says, these are things, you highlight operational increases or capital. If you get into any revenue increase scenarios, you would explain these are the reasons why. Of course, I'll put that up there, but it's really, do you all agree with that message? The following year, say for example, if you paid for an item, you had a reduction, you can put that in that same summary if you chose to go that way, to say, hey, taxes are being reduced this year because revenues were higher than expected, on sales tax. Project went away. So that's another way to do it if you so choose and tell the story.
Some of these questions I'm asking, it's just because
Yeah.
I haven't done this before, and you can just say, no, we don't do it that way.
Yeah, well, we normally don't, but I'm giving you some
I'm just trying
options.
to come up with ideas to put
Yeah.
in stuff.
At real estate, for just the 1.752, you're talking 6.31 cents at 280. I would think, though, that if we were going to do some type of voter referendum, which I don't know enough about, and initially I'm not real encouraged about, but I would think that the way you would do that would be to lump a handful of different items together, so you come up with just some total number, and then you could accomplish a handful of projects. Letting Jonathan come up with an answer with Hannon certainly will at least educate us all and show maybe there's options out there to play with.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that they may not want to fund like police vehicles, but when you're talking about a school, our school system is very important to everybody, I think. Most people.
There you go. That's right. You mind if we keep walking through this thing and kind of?
Can I just clarify before?
Please.
As far as the IT assessment, Jonathan, is that, you gonna look into that with IT? I mean, I don't wanna stick my nose in if it's, doesn't need to be.
I'm gonna ask Alan to get with you directly,
Okay.
to make sure we understand those questions. I do think that 129,585 number in there should come down. I support their servers and all that, but understanding it's not just servers, it's the desktop or laptops in there. I recommend that portion of it. This is why we have checks and balance, so if Ms. Warren disagrees, we're totally fine with that. But if we're fine on contingency as we approach the end of this year, I would make a supplemental or
That's the other one.
funding of it to do contingency. Take that out of it, what I said last meeting, as well as that vehicle that building and zoning's looking for. Those two needs, take them out of contingency FY '25, lower your request for FY '26. I'm ahead of myself with vehicles.
That's good. One more
column.
scenario just to
Information.
confuse the whole situation, which we like as viable options. Oh, man, we're
So
glad-
in sticking with that category, the service equipment, deducting that by whatever his number was for computers.
No, it looks like you're going to deduct $20K if we can do this over a 2-year period, at $40K for 50 desktop replacements. Just to limit that down a little bit, and then we'll get some answers on some of the other, for cloud versus physical servers.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
the leasing of the ambulance, I just
Oh.
want to point that out. The lease amount,
I haven't gotten there, but yeah, what is that?
5 years, annual payments are 102,250. So it would increase the operating budget another 102,250 for EMS.
Now, and we haven't gotten there, but is that going to start in 27 or 26?
That wouldn't start until, I would assume, 27.
27,
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
because we'll get it October 26 will be our first arrival. First of the two you've already ordered. They're going to ask for another one be ordered, whether
Yes.
they do it in May or July, so we get in that queue of 32 months.
All right, before we jump over, and thank you for the information by all means. Alted HVAC replacement, I think we have talked about that at this point through CIP.
Yes, sir.
Probably should go ahead with that one.
The school board had a note there to move to FY '27. We can verify that with them or the superintendent?
We've got it in 27 off of the sheet that's on the screen, so we'll.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing in FY '26. My
No.
apologies.
You checking on the backside is definitely the way to do this. Leave that one in 27. What about the intercom system? What note do you have on the intercom system? Because I don't have a whole lot on that one either.
I don't know if I even have that on here, on their list.
I
don't see it on
I
that
want to hear
list.
from somebody at the schools telling us why this thing is in such dire repair and why we have to do it. It's something to do also with the clocks is what I remember, and setting tones or something. But we need some clarity on that one as well. Especially if we're talking about, I'm looking at all this just under the auspice that if we're borrowing money and obligating the taxpayers for it, then we should know everything about these items and why we are absolutely doing them. So we're going to get an answer on the 196. And then just because it's here, I want to know what the other equipment for the 140 is. Yes, ma'am.
I can pull up that CIP list from the schools. I just lumped it all together. It was miscellaneous, but we can pull that up.
Okay. Don't mind waiting a minute. No. All right.
So have y'all discussed the AV system at all?
There was AV system as far as the, for the auditorium?
Yeah.
No, it popped up the last CIP meeting.
That's
First
lights.
time.
And it showed up on here.
It's lights, stage equipment, everything in that auditorium.
And it is outdated. There is no question about it being outdated. People use that facility. Where there is big ask and we know how tight this thing is, there has to be priorities on this thing. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Well, obsolete doesn't mean non-functional either.
And then the other component that plays with this, doing it all at once, you may be getting a slight reduction in price, but I would think that between audio, visual, and then lighting, you can split those up and try to replace them in a responsible, budgeted type of manner. All right, Ms. Warren, are you ready at the 140?
Yeah, if, on the screen, I pulled up the most recent that Dr. Timmons sent us on the 2026 and 7 school year. In this other category, I believe is where these are coming from, cameras, 40K tech cameras, access control, MPS, intelligent control boards, division 23K, door reader boards, division 42K, and then study 38K. There's also the windows. I think the windows are lumped in that, and the HVAC might be as well. I don't think I have that separated on the
No,
list.
you've got that over
Oh, I
there
do. I
on
have the
Windows.
HVAC.
And you've got school board replacement windows
Okay.
for the gym in the far side over
Okay.
to the right. Yeah, so what the,
So these are in this other column on the screen that are in red, starting with where it says division, milling and paving 250, that should be where those came from. except for the study report. I put the study report as a separate line item under other, but the miscellaneous items were like that camera, access control, intelligent control board, door reader.
Let's leave it there for a moment, and then we can start trying to talk to Dr. Timmons and see what we've got, because, I mean, let's leave that one for now, and we can move on. Going at the ambulances, going to the middle column, anybody else got anything on the left side of the sheet, please? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't know.
I think we decided on some leasing. Thank you,
Yes.
Jennifer. Following up on the IT, obviously, some of that'll be deducted.
Yep.
Waverly Owl air handling units, where I talked about that fan coils. The AV system, is that on the board or off the board? That's what I was, okay. Just want to make sure
Off.
I had that. All right, we'll make that
We're
revision.
leaving Alted HVAC. We're gonna get clarity on the Waverly Yow intercom system. Get somebody to talk to us and why that thing is utterly failing. And then the 140, we can leave 427. I think it's a good placeholder. I'm sure that we can fill 140K even if it's not what is exactly on the list. There's a high probability it'll change. You got anything else, Jonathan?
No, sir.
On that one?
Thank
All right, now we're going to the middle. We know the ambulances starting in FY '27 are going from $509,894 to potentially $102,250 for a 5-year lease. What's the EMS? What vehicles are we buying for 170, Jonathan?
And I believe that number may actually need to revise again. Let me bring up my sheet, and then, Brian, I'm gonna ask you to chime in as well. I believe what we decided on that should actually be 107, so take that down, and here's why. Initially, they were wanting like a lower level vehicle where Noah's vehicle would go over to community paramedicine. He would get a lower graded, like just regular passenger vehicle to drive. And then the replacement of the Response 3 vehicle, which is $107,000. What we talked about in-house was Noah keeps his vehicle, it's a low mileage, it works. Buy the quick response vehicle, and that replaces that, but keep that in your pool as a spare if the response vehicle goes down, or if you need a community paramedicine vehicle just to rotate in your fleet, you would have it there. So that should take that total down outside of the ambulance for their other vehicles to 107. Brian?
That's exactly correct. So instead of replacing 2 vehicles and possibly looking at a third, we're replacing 1, putting the replacement back into the pool to use for community paramedicine or a backup for Response 3 or Response 1.
Thank you. That work? Everybody good on that one? 107 is the new number on that. Let's go to sheriff's vehicles / drones. Are you making the recommendation, Jonathan, to go with 4? Which vehicles are we getting for 316? We know the drone is $25K. And I thought Troy said there was a grant for the drone.
There is, but the 25 is not the full amount. 25 would be the local share if they got the grant. Is that correct, Ms. Warren?
That's correct.
So it's actually, I think, $60-some thousand all in for these drones.
20, matches 20.
All right, okay. So the drone is at 20. What vehicles are you recommending to
The
come to the
vehicles,
316?
and I have not spoke to the sheriff about that. I was gonna make this suggestion today and follow up with them afterwards. They had initially asked for, I believe it was the 5 Tahoes at, I think they're 75,000 or something apiece. I reduced this as a recommendation to 4 new Explorers. I believe they're about 64 or 65K total to outfit turnkey, and then 1 used vehicle. So I believe that should bring you to about 291 if you took that approach, and then you add in the the drone, and that's how you get, the 25,000, how you get to the 316.
Does that work? 4 Explorers, one used vehicle, and then a 20K drone.
And honestly, Mr. Chairman, a lot of this is decisions that are recommendations staff's making, or I'll just say for myself, I don't want to throw anyone else out there, but we're a team. But it's just looking at affordability across the board. So we're not saying that 4 vehicles is not needed. It's just trying to make everything fit. I do know their mileage schedule, and I definitely think they need the 4, but it's just trying to make everything fit, and that's why I'm making that recommendation.
Let's leave this one at your 316. Where are you at with the 236, 250, and 27, Jonathan?
Is that 3 or 4?
I believe that's, let's add it up here real quick. I want to say that's just 3 new and 1 used for future out years
All right,
with some escalation.
that's close enough for me. I think we need to be continuing to upgrade our fleet, and that's that. Building and zoning needs a truck, 35K. That's the cheapest vehicle the county has bought. Anybody got any problem with that one?
And that one will need to probably go up slightly. I think 37 or rounding up. It was 36 something on the EVA, the state procurement website.
All right, so
is
we're
what we could get that vehicle for.
doing a minor adjustment on that one. Anybody got any issue with that?
Mr.
Please.
Chairman, the FY27, I believe, was a number. We had out years plugged in for various things, this being one of them. So there's escalations. The reason why that 236 is there, I believe that was actually assuming a 3 new and 1 used schedule, because last year at this time, I think that's what we talked about doing year over year. It's just this year we had a request for 4. So I do remember that now. That's why that 236 number is there, minus the drones and assuming 3 versus 4.
Everybody good?
Do we have a need for that car anywhere else?
For which?
Soils.
It's my understanding that, that could be in the fleet, whether it's for zoning, because Alan right now, I think, either uses, if there's something available, if not his own, it would give an extra vehicle in the fleet of the county. So whether it's for zoning, or if, sometimes treasurer and commissioner go on trips, for conferences.
It's low mileage, but I'd rather not sell it for $5,000.
Correct. I would recommend it stays in the county pool.
Yeah.
To be used for county functions.
Right, so 100%.
I think you use, it'd be nice for you to have something, you mileage reimbursement as well, so.
That Jeep is a good vehicle. We appreciate that.
It's an Ford Escape.
I
I think it has AC, it's good options in it.
Everybody good on the 35? Go
I
ahead.
agree. I just have one clarification question. Now, we buy vehicles, we're exempt from tax, correct? We don't have to pay the state tax?
That is correct.
Are there any federal tax abatements? Because there's a lot of federal tax that goes into these vehicles all the way through the supply chain.
Yeah, on our, what do you want to say, build sheet? It's been a while, but there are no taxes on that. There may be a destination charge and processing fees. I don't think you escape those as a county, but as a county, we get best pricing on state bids. I can say that, versus just trying to have 3 dealerships compete. Occasionally, I will say there is a dealership, I won't name them, that's in Stanton. Somehow, some way, they work hard for your business.
All right. 35K, we're leaving it in B and Z. We're not selling the other vehicle, so we can keep it in our fleet and not just give it away, and I agree with that. The school this year on the buses, I think they've cut it down to 1 bus, so that drops it.
They have, I want to be correct, they recommend 2. I have suggested 1.
There you go. Let's go with the 1 bus.
And we would put that at the 150 mark.
I think we should do the same for 27. We all are listening to lower enrollment. This is an area. I think adjusting both those down is no big deal.
And that would be a school determination. There are things, since we're here, I'll give my opinion, that make sense. It's all about volume, right? If you're going to get a good lease price. Our largest fleet of vehicles is either law enforcement or schools. It's definitely something that they're their own government entity that they would have to sign that agreement. I don't recommend the maintenance side. Well, one, they have their bus shop. And for us, the sheriff gets good value out of local shops where he can get quick turnaround. Some of those leases, and I'm only speaking of experience through Enterprise, the garage has to be participating, in which they've already agreed on terms of whether it's oil changes, tires. But it would be a good question for the school board. Over just my knowledge and time being here, I don't know if they've ever looked at a lease. We've tried to discourage them away from EVs and stuff like that because we're rural.
No, EVs aren't gonna work.
But they are looking at maybe larger buses. Mr. Jackson, did they say buses that would seat 70 plus?
No, it's, they've got buses that seat 45, and now they're going to a bus that holds 77.
Yeah, so it's consolidating some routes. So if you're on their call list, I mean, you almost daily get something where there's a
fun
bus
stuff
route.
you
They're
learn
short
on this
drivers, so
whole
they have to
thing,
go back and make additional loops. This would allow them to consolidate. And if it's TMI, just tell me.
No, we all need to learn
Let me
about.
ask you this question. And this goes back to my concept of school restructuring because of declining enrollment. What is the usage rate on their current buses? Since they've dropped so many routes, I'm just curious. Do they give or provide that kind of number?
Did they tell us, Brian, we were talking radios with them if we were looking to replace, was it 30 buses that the bus superintendent, he's gonna look at his notes, that are active. I don't know if that has a head count of spares, and I do not know the mileage on those buses. I do know in it's either our purchasing policy or somewhere where we have life cycles, like ambulances are 5 to 7 years, buses are 10 to 12-year assets.
Buses 30 and portables 60 on the radio side.
So the buses themselves, 30 buses. And I don't think that includes those 2 smaller activity buses, nor the van that they use to transport time to time.
I put a conservative number on there as around 45 to 50, because that room didn't have a good answer. How many vehicles would need a radio? Looking at that,
I do think that to the consideration of lower enrollment, I do like the fact that they're exploring them. I don't know how long this bus is going to be for 75 seats, but
I actually thought they were going. I thought they were going the other direction because there was some kind of bill or something that was going through that would allow them to run the activity buses on some of these routes that do not require the larger buses or potentially vans.
yeah, I'm not sure. They certainly can do that when there are kids that have either IEPs or alt ed type of stuff.
Full grade.
But the larger buses overall, they were looking at consolidating bus routes due to, they have a shortage of drivers plus shrinking student population. I'm going off memory. I'm not quoting Ms. Graham.
How many bus routes are there? Does anybody know? Oh, no.
Usually y'all put that article out over there.
Kim Turner, how many bus routes are there? All right.
And it's this half of Twyman's Mill, this other half of Twyman's Mill. Yeah.
Well, this has been enjoyable, this conversation on buses.
Here's even something even better.
I
I had a neighbor that remembers when the first school buses were run in Madison County. And the first 3 school buses, they were contracted to a local hog farmer who took his trucks and put benches in there to haul the kids and then took the benches out and were hauling hogs the rest of the day. Now, there's a unique
That is.
And there were times.
Still no seatbelts.
There were times when seniors would actually drive the bus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Cardi drove a bus at one time as a senior. All right. This has been enjoyable. All right, so we're going 150 on that. The whole intention of this is to, one, control some of this spending, but also to curtail the conversation pertaining to potentially borrowing money. That's all this is. Facilities, the truck, they're asking for 45. Dr. Timmons thinks it's important. What do you have to say over here?
I would agree with that. I mean, I've had the ability to observe or work around those guys. His crews stay active. They look to do things in-house. I didn't ask for mileage on that vehicle, but I know they cycle their vehicles they have long length time. I mean, I think the one that Dickie and John used to ride around in, I think they kept that till maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. So those facilities trucks last a long time. I don't see it as any make or break, but that's your decision.
Everybody fine? 45, leave it. Now let's switch over to the final column. It's taking far too long. Facilities and CIP list for the county. Ms. Warren's going to come back with a little bit of clarity on that. We know 50 at CID and for the roof, and then 30 for the plating at the transfer station. And then there's rollover and grant monies involved. We'll see a breakdown, then we can kind of understand that a little bit better, both for 26 and then moving into 27. The outdoor rec facility, I think pull the 1.9 completely off. Completely. We've already invested into that facility, what, 1.2 roughly?
Yes, sir.
They are doing a good job fundraising. It's sad that the cost has gone up as drastically as it has, but we're confident they will continue to do big things. County reassessment, we've done that for years past, going 50 on top of 50. That seems like a very responsible thing to do. And then we'll have the money in place to do the reassessment after the 6 years like we just did. Good. More servers.
So I'll speak to that one. We can remove the 30 if we're going to spread. I say we could, because that 30, we were doing a placeholder for 30K each year in the out years, assuming there was more desktops and things that needed to be replaced. I don't think there was any other, if they replace all 50 of these desktops, I don't know what else. I mean, maybe there's a little bit we might want to leave in of the 30 additional on top of that 20, but.
Let's do this. Let's leave that, let Ms. Warren, leave it at 30 currently. Let Ms. Warren go to IT and come back with a revised number on that 30. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Jonathan, tell me about repointing bricks at Waverly Yale.
Honestly, I would say any of those out years are just overall projects that's not been on their, like, say, FY26 list. It's really coming from the facility studies that we also have the other side of that. You may recall the arcade had brick pointing at one point in time, so.
Did we do that?
We didn't. I was told to scrub it, and we scrubbed it.
Good job.
Literally, not physically, we haven't scrubbed the building yet.
No.
But that's what those items represent, Mr. Chairman, is coming from that facility study. I don't know if they will come back and reprioritize that. Certainly, the track is a little bit different. That's one that's been discussed. That was recommended to be moved from this year to FY27.
All right. I'm sorry.
So everything above the track is out years.
644 for 27 to repoint bricks. I cannot see that as the highest priority of things that need to happen with the school. I'd say cross that one off. Oh, good Lord, Jonathan.
And I would say this, when you go to set your budget or approve the capital plan and your budget, you're only approving the funds for FY26. I want to be fair, this doesn't have the 5-year plan. Normally what you're presented with, there'll be a 5-year plan, but again, you will only be funding or committing unless you do some long-term debt financing for the first year. So certainly we will make these notes on FY27. I just wanted to emphasize that it's a 5-year approach, and these things could get reprioritized next year based on your feedback and or the school's recommendation.
I'm redlining from 644 all the way, including the 55K, all those items, so that we can see an accurate depiction of where we're at on 26 as it pertains to capital projects, capital expenditures that are moving forward. And then we can kind of go into and talk about it with the schools to prioritize these items, and then we can come back and talk about potential of some type of financial package. But right now, I'm crossing all of them off. The 243,504 for the track, track needs to be fixed. We've been talking about that for several years. Charlie and that bunch cut a large route out of it, which we appreciate in every way. So, and they've, at this point, apparently they've canceled the one track meet a year, or not canceled it, but relocated, I think, to Greene County. 27, I'm fine with the track. We know we're gonna have to do something with it. Alted windows in 27 for $25K.
Mr. Chairman, I do have up on the screen now their list with the red being their priorities. If you're interested in looking at their priorities that are red, they did list the windows and the HVAC replacement as priorities in the Alted building.
Leave the windows. What are these, real small windows? There's not very many of them.
Is this on Ed?
Yeah, but
There's-
it's only the gym, right?
Yeah, it's mainly on the old cafeteria side.
cafeteria.
No. This is a different facility. This is Alted. The 30K that's in this upcoming fiscal year is at the school board office in the gym where they're
Okay.
moving Alted to.
Yeah, the standalone building for currently Boys and Girls Club.
There, that's
That
better.
was the old lunchroom, so facing the the playground area is where those windows are located. And you have a few others in the back, but most of those windows are on that. And it's a smaller building. I don't know the square footage. I dare say it's probably maybe 3,000 square feet or something like that. So that's why it's a lower cost. But
All right.
again, that's the school's facilities condition report. That's
All right. Leave those windows in there. We have been talking about the Alted building. We'll see how that one shakes out. The milling and paving's just a black hole for money. I don't know. Leave it in there for now. We're not approving it as far as 26. We know we're gonna have to do a bunch of asphalt work at some given point. A quarter is a huge amount of money, but in the same sense, it's probably gonna cost more than that, and we're probably gonna have to do something sometime. So there's a real vague and weird answer. At this point, I'm cutting the 38 for the study report. I have zero interest in that at this point, unless financial conditions improve in a drastic way. That's, I think, a completely other conversation.
What was that report for?
The potential to replace the high school and middle school.
Yeah, it's a renovation, it's renovation versus new study for middle school, high school campus.
There is aging infrastructure in the high school and the middle school. There is no question about it. With declining enrollment, and the budget as tight as it is, I think that's one we must push as far as we can. I think cut the 38 and be done with it, so it's not part of it. If things improve in a drastic way, then we can talk about it in a different conversation. The panel boxes for this year, the 25K, that's just what it is. They're probably getting it cheap. I don't know why the 17 on here for the bleacher motors, because they're covering that in this current fiscal year. So that one should be crossed off, shouldn't it? There you go.
They still had that,
That one, they've ordered the,
it's 17, so the note's 1,700 per motor times 10, oh, I'm sorry, I'm off mic. $1,700 per motor times 10 motors equals 17,000 is what they've said.
yeah, I don't remember the 10, but Jonathan's good at reading. So, I mean, there's no reason to doubt it, but I do think they fixed this already. Cross that one off. School board window replacement for that very, very nice facility they put in that cafeteria. We might as well protect the dang thing, and that's a good deal. And on top of the protection of the actual equipment inside, they've installed newer HVAC units on that, and it's leaking like crazy, just air going in and out of these shoddy windows. We need to replace it to preserve the investment we've made on that facility. Other exterior doors, I thought they were replacing 4 of them, and it was gonna cost $75K. Was that is what we've talked about.
This,
Ms. Warren?
this was their most recently updated report that shows 71,077. So maybe they got a price?
Yeah, it's just, the last note I had was reduced by 3923. School board asked BOS to move to operating budget, so I don't know what the 3923 reduction is, but yes, we have it at 7177 now.
There you go. Let's
But
leave that
apparently
one.
it's district-wide. It doesn't say which schools, it just says district-wide.
Let's leave that one. The only other one I've got, and just since thankfully we're wrapping this up, there's been mention in a brief way about an elevator needing to be fixed. I'm skeptical of that. I think we need to get an updated bid or some kind of conversation on why an elevator seems to cost $100,000. Well, Waverly, yeah.
And we would check on that too, because not on Waverly Yao, I mean, it only has to do FY '27. I don't know what their schedule is for the high school. That's the other school that has an elevator, but certainly, Mr. Chairman, we'll check on that and verify. Not only the need, is that a repair, replacement, but
No,
what do
I
these things really cost?
that is the last part of that's the real one. I don't trust even numbers at 100K. That just doesn't sound accurate at all to me. They have talked about one of the elevators at one of the schools needing an update. So we just need to investigate that. Anybody else got anything on this capital list that I've spent too much time on?
No, I think we spent the right amount of time, we made really good progress.
Does that work?
Yes, thank you all.
All right. Let's go back to the agenda and go to the calendar year 25 tax rates.
Pull up that sheet, please, Jennifer. Yes. No, he wants to talk about tax rates. So when you look at the different scenarios of the budget, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, we can, there's another one though, too. I think when we get the overall consideration. As Jennifer pulls this up, we have a couple things on taxes. We have, Mr. Daniel provided some analysis to Jennifer on real estate. If you're looking at a tax bill, if it stayed at the 74, goes to the equalized rate at 49 cents in increments of 50, 51, or 52. Mr. Dawson made me aware you had it, and I was like, well, I haven't seen it yet, but, so, and this could be modified or adjusted. I told Brian that I see what you did there. They pegged me on there as well, so at least I can see the values are going up regardless. I'm second on that list if inquiry minds want to know. He didn't say it was me, but I'm like, that's me, so. All right, really, Ms. Warren, I don't know if there's a certain way you wanted to cover this, but certainly, I guess we'll break the ice by saying we all know we're in a reassessment year. At your next meeting on Tuesday, well, at your Tuesday meeting, because you got a groundbreaking thing on Monday, you're going to have a public hearing on the tax rate for real estate for calendar year 2025, specifically the equalized rate, which is 49 cents. So folks are getting their reassessment bill. They see it at the 74 cents rate, and we all know that legally we're not able to leave it there and won't leave it there. So let's just, so you can see what that assessed value is at those various scenarios. If you have a 3-bedroom home in town, you know, myself, I'm being targeted number 2 there. But various things if you got ag land or whatever. So you can look at the equalized rate, assuming that's what the board's action will be Tuesday night. You can see what's reflected at that effective rate of 49 cents. So some go down, some go up. And then what you're going to have to determine, and we're going to go through outside agencies and department numbers here momentarily, and that's gonna really control if you're asking me to advertise for April 22nd, tax rate public hearing, which is every tax that you have, TOD, tangible personal property, real estate, all that, we'll advertise that rate. So you can see that, you know, at 1 cent increments, 50 cents, 51 cents, 52 cents. Jennifer, is there anything you'd like to mention in this overview? Is really to give the board and the public a quick snapshot of a variety of different property examples of what you could expect your taxes, your rate to be or value to be at those intervals. And we stand by for any questions or feedback. I thank the Commissioner of Revenue for putting this together today for today's meeting.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to do, I'm gonna put together and pass it to the board for their okay before the next meeting, but I wanna do a comparison of what you're paying for property taxes versus what inflation has done the last 5 years. Because we haven't raised property tax rates in, what, 4 years? Okay, and then also looking at, you know, the total nominal dollar value compared to the rate of inflation, the rate of spending. Our spending is under the rate of inflation. And even with, you know, actually that first house up there on the list is comparable to one, almost identical to one that I have that I've got in my spreadsheet. And for example, if you went up to like, if you started at 49 cents, at the new valuation, it's another $100 a year. So that's $50 each payment period. Then if you get up to what I would call the worst case, at 52 cents, you're looking at essentially $200 more and $100 each time. If you can, if you did the actual rate of inflation, if taxes in this county on property had risen as fast as inflation, and I'm using the 25% housing increase, you'd be paying a lot more than that today. I mean, we couldn't even hit that at 52 cents. And I'm not, one thing I want to be clear, I'm not going to try to tell people how lucky they are if we have to raise their taxes. That's an insult.
Right.
But I think, you know, trying to get some perspective of where we're at, this will sell some people as to we do need to get this tax base expanded.
And Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, should you have any questions for the Commissioner, he did text, he is on the GoToMeeting link, just in case you had anything for him.
Brian, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, no.
All right, by providing this and having this on the agenda, do we need to be talking about what we're gonna do as far as an advertisement? Is that the intent here?
So we can definitely use this as a segue. Jennifer I think she has some information that we can click through depending on the choices you make outside agencies or departments that look at, if you do nothing, the open appropriation balance, or if you did 1 cent, 2 cent, 3 cent scenarios.
When do you?
Ms. Warren?
Well, I will mention that I've done the analysis with 3 cent increase, and I'm putting together a PowerPoint for next week to show you the difference between 1, 2, and 3 cents. But my goal was to balance the budget, the operating, because I knew that capital, that's a whole different animal. But to balance our operating budget with the cuts that I'm put into the spreadsheet that you will get more detail on next week, we'd have to raise 3 cents pretty much to balance the budget.
So based on that, and I don't like saying this, but I'm also responsible, I would recommend, and again, your advertising is one thing, your choice to do is another, but your advertised maximum rate is what you could consider, and you can always choose less. You can't go over what's advertised. And I know it's going to seem moronic, I'm going to say in a way, that you're going to have a hearing on the 8th. I've explained this last week, but I'm going to keep on explaining it so it'll get picked up by the general public. We did not have all this information to put in there your effective rate, which is what you may assume that you need to balance your budget. We have the equalized rate, which is known at 49 cents, which is we're going to ask you to take action on next Tuesday. April 22nd, which is what I like to know from the day on taxes, on advertisement, because Kim and I will need to get that advertisement out say by close of business tomorrow. So we're meeting the time demands for the April 22nd meeting. We won't do budget then because the state requires you to have separate meeting from budget and tax rates. We're going to do tax rate and administrative fees, which administrative fees on here
Do you
momentarily.
need to put that out tomorrow?
Yeah, because we can't do anything.
So if you need to put that out tomorrow, then we need to give you an answer to the maximum
Correct, today. Preferably.
Going to the 53 cents, what's the beginning appropriation coming from the fund balance?
So 52 cents would be the 3 pennies.
Or 52, thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
Looking at what opening balance appropriation is, it's still roughly around $250,000. So it's close to being a balanced budget, but there is still a little bit of opening balance appropriation there. It's very close. I didn't want to go up another penny,
Yeah,
because
but
that's
what did we
280.
begin, our beginning appropriation last year was what?
It was, but it included capital. It
Yeah.
was $2.6 million. So that included capital. The issue for the county really is the funding of capital is a big, although we can balance the operating budget by raising a couple pennies, the bigger picture is how do we future fund our capital needs through cash, through our taxes. And that's why the funding discussion came in from Davenport. Right now, we're just trying to balance the operating budget right now.
And part of that, you'll see strategy when we go through,
Yeah,
and
that's
I'd like
max.
to do that today at some point, your outside agency list, your department list. We've got Jennifer developed, there's one that's left administrative adjustments blank. We also have it where there's some recommendations there that helps you get towards that balanced budget approach.
All right.
So I don't know if you want to
Nope.
cover the easy
I
one
don't.
first, administrative fees? Or do you want to get
I
into
don't
something
really
else?
want to cover that one at all.
Okay.
Not yet. I'd rather leave the conversation about potential advertised safe rates, including the administrative fees, until last.
Okay.
Can we go through, and I think, let's just make this shorter. Ms. Warren has 2 copies of this sheet. I think, let's just save, I'm sorry, I think that we've talked about this enough. I think, not even just for saving time, but we've talked about it. Let's go with the one that Ms. Warren is making administrative recommendations off of. And then we can, if we have grievances about it, we can change and adjust anything. One. Yeah, one of those.
You have a different one of these?
That work for you? Yes. Good. All right, let's work off Ms. Warren's sheet. Ms. Warren, you want to walk through this?
Sure. Do you want me to start with outside agencies?
Sure.
There's a document with the outside agency list. I'll bring that up first. So based on our last meeting, budget meeting, in the discussion about flat funding, what I did was I put in the spreadsheet that you see here, there's 2 green columns. The first green column on the left is the actual agency request amount, and you can see the change from FY '25. And then the far right green column is the Board of Supervisor recommended amount, which is basically flat funding, except for those agencies that we, are more, that we don't have a discretionary amount we can go to. So by doing the flat funding, the outside agency increase from the prior fiscal year was 9.6%, or I'm just going to round it 10% increase. We have it down to 4.2%. I did take Parks and Rec out of this list and put them under the departments.
Good.
So 10% was going in increase for the outside agencies overall. Now, with flat funding, the increase is 4.2%. And the reduction, I think, is $106,000. So really just wanted to make sure that we were in the right, we assumed correctly that flat funding was, if you wanted, and there was some that you decided, no, we're not going to fund. And I took notes on those. I think those are at the bottom. The last couple at the bottom, you'll see there's a zero amount based on last week's meeting.
All right. Does anybody see anything they want to change on this sheet?
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. What about the library funding? That is mandatory amount?
So I'm going to say yes, but not try to talk out of both sides of my mouth. And I even went back and looked at the old files, I think from 2012 or 2013. And I do remember going to one meeting where the assistant state librarian was at that meeting, not the state librarian. So counties are required to fund a median per capita to get the state funding portion. You can choose to say, look, we're just going to fund, and this may be a good example this year, but this is a tight year. We just can't fund it more than last year. What could occur, may not occur, is similar to what occurred back in, I think, the years 08, 09, 10, 11, and maybe even 12, was they say, hey, you're not meeting your per capita. You are at risk of reducing state funding or losing state funding. Please put forth together a plan to get you back on track. This year, the state revenue portion of their budget, I think, is about $75,000 from state. And then the rest of that, the big portion coming from the county is they're requesting $187,600, which is a $10,000 increase. So
With your investigations, what is the actual number that we should be funding to? Is it the 187? Is that what the per capita number is?
I can go back through. I'm pretty sure of that, Clay. There is a formula. I didn't calculate the towns to see if they're meeting their per capita. Last year was the first year that they gave, and they are a locality just like, or a local government just like ourselves. But yes, sir, that's their, based on that median per capita. And I think that's a little over 14,000 people that's based on.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for going through that.
And sadly enough, and I remember this now, and it used to be where mowing grass was counted as the in-kind. So whatever that value was, I think it was either $3,500 or $5,000 a time.
And
that was part of our contribution.
And pushing snow.
And pushing snow. They do not, that does not count anymore. We still do it, unless you tell us otherwise not to, but because the public use that and see it and all that stuff.
It's a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
So really, it's a matter of, for next week's final administrative budget presentation, is there any other changes that you can foresee us making on these outside agencies? I know the Learning Center, I think, was one you were going to revisit.
Have we heard from them about the $5 increase? I mean, that they are considering it, or have we had a chance to talk to anybody?
Can we find out?
Yeah, I mean, let's find out. I'm not saying.
Probably contacting them directly would be the way to get the direct answer.
On the Learning
That's
Center
Simon, but,
or Simon?
Their board don't have any real.
They do. And Simon's on that board.
I was just reaching out. Thank you, Jennifer. I was just reaching out. It has not been determined yet on the $5 increase rate.
Well, they don't increase their rates. Sorry.
No, that is right.
It's not sustainable if they don't
Are they
increase it.
not going to increase the rate?
They were debating it. And,
You mean they're
know,
debating
I mean,
it?
it's been, what, a year and a half now that they've been debating raising rates, and that's all I'm gonna say about the one.
Yeah, so we,
Yeah.
I'll follow up.
it's believed they will, it's just not, it's the determined date of when they'll do that. So we'll have to reach out to them and say, hey,
Let's-
we're hearing that you're going to, but are you? And
Yeah, let's leave that in there. We'll see what happens over the next week.
Okay? You make a note to follow up.
Does that work? Any other outside agency revisions that anybody sees? I mean, I see you pulled John Reed down to where he was previously. Looks like you pulled basically everybody, and that's pretty strong.
we're just trying to be consistent. Some of the ones I know, we made decisions on Mad Cats and legal aid, and I think to Jennifer's point, we just talked about it, the main one was understanding what you want to do with the Learning Center.
What do you think?
Let me follow up. I should have done it already.
Right.
If,
That'd be Cardi.
Yeah, I mean,
if they raise
if
to
they're
help
listening to
themselves,
somebody
then that,
financially giving them advice, fine.
let's leave it like it is. Let's switch over to departments, and let's go to Ms. Warren's filled-in sheet, please.
Okay.
Ms. Warren?
I will just make a initial comment that we have not spoken to any of the department heads. We do plan to do so. I was planning on doing that between now and next week's final presentation. So let me bring this up. We, in yellow, we wanted to highlight in yellow the actual departments that had new position requests. And so the goal here was twofold. One, to look at every single line item and look at the trend from previous 3 to 4 fiscal years to see if there's still some padding in that budget that we could reduce slightly. I was able to do that here and there. But then when it comes to kind of the big dials, let me talk to those. With EMS, we have spoken to Chief Hillstrom about this, I believe. Why don't you speak to the EMS changes, Jonathan, because you spoke to him directly.
Correct, and perfect timing, because I'll make sure also I see what Brian may have to add. So part of NOAA's budget was to recommend a power shift as well as a new FTE to be basically a standalone for community paramedicine. So what this budget has up there assumes that the power shift goes away, the FTE request of community paramedicine goes away. I want to be respectful of the board. I think there was some conversation last time. Each of you may have some different thoughts on that. I will say there has been a recent personnel change that NOAA feels like and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe that FTE he's not going to request now. Tiffany was promoted to lieutenant, and with that, he believes gives her some flexibility to not only manage that program, but to utilize some of their existing staff to manage it at its current level. So that's a reduction. We did take some other things away. I think there was a LifeScan physical service that's in there. I think it had a $24,000 number tied to it. Certainly physicals are allowed via your insurance. Again, tight budget year. We're not trying to be mean, but it's just decisions we have to make. And I think those were the largest items we reduced. Now, as we said, they're capital. Any reduction in purchase, the lease slides over to operating. But overall, Jennifer, that one went down. Are they at 6.9% or something like that? Initially, they were up there.
Yeah, they're actually, in this model, 2.3% change. However, we do have to add the lease amount in there. And then one other thing I wanted to note on EMS, I did some analysis on their attrition rate for their full-time salary pool, and they have a lot of turnover. They do have a lot of money left over on their full-time wages line item because of attrition and gap in positions. So I did add an attrition factor of 5%, and that's based on a trend that I'm seeing over the last couple years of attrition rate. I did increase their overtime budget because I did a thorough analysis on that because we're always short on overtime, and their overtime budget is usually 50% of their full-time wages budget. So I've increased that from I think it was 566,000 to 660 this coming year, and I think before they had it at like 60 something. So I wanted to make sure that we captured wages as more accurately with attrition and overtime, because those are the two big items where they have monies there. So, but all in all, if we look at this approach and with adding in the lease amounts, it takes them closer to if we add another 100,000 to the 3.267, so they're going to be under 3.4. They're going to be probably, 5% increase instead of 2.3, is my guess.
So still a
But does
lot
the-
lower from the original, like 9%.
Yeah, no, I apologize.
Yeah, so you see on the screen, the original request was 3,484,406. That included that power shift, that extra position, all of those other things, and we have it at 3,267,155, which is only a $74,000 change from last year. But we will need to add the lease.
But doesn't the lease go into FY '27? And the vehicles for EMS that was at 170, 175 dropped to 107?
The lease would be the equipment. You are correct. The ambulance would go to FY
Thank you.
'27.
You're 100% right. Got it. Thank you.
And after EMS, sir, when you're ready to move on, I apologize.
No.
We jumped over schools before.
Yeah, I was
My
gonna
apologies.
do schools last. I was gonna
Okay,
do the
perfect.
yellow first, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Plus leased.
Should I wait until?
Any more questions on EMS?
Anybody else got anything?
Supervisor Dawson had a step away.
All right. We can come back if he's got comments.
Commonwealth's attorney.
Yeah.
Really, the main change there was, Ms. Berry asked for an additional $15,000 for that third attorney position to help her recruit. My thought was to leave that position at the 75K, and if let her find the pool of candidates she needs, and then come back and say, I need an extra 15K, or whatever it is, and take it out of contingency at that point.
Can we plug that 15 in as an earmarked item in contingency?
We could.
Let's do that,
could.
and then it gives us the ability to, one, control it to some degree, but then two, if she can find a good candidate for it, come and ask, and we can just move on
So
right along.
let me make sure, Jennifer, I understand. So that overall 1% we're required, that would just be a part of that 1% that we would earmark. We're not earmarking that and also
Right.
adding to okay,
Yeah.
tracking.
We did that last year with that IT position, I think.
Yeah.
So
All right, so the 15, what else goes into that, Ms. Warren?
that's the main thing. I think there was maybe one or two little minor
Wasn't
issues.
there Axios stuff, or, yeah,
I
I'm
left
probably
all that
saying-
in.
Yeah, that
I-
subscription we need to leave in
I
there.
don't think there's a play.
Yeah.
And I appreciate her being able to negotiate down to that, there's like a 5-person license type of thing versus the
Oh, yeah,
bigger
yeah,
system,
that
so
10, yeah.
she did a good job
So
negotiating
it
that.
went from a change of 152,000 down to 130, so that's really just that 15,000 and, some,
Everybody good on the Commonwealth Attorney? Dustin, we're taking Clarissa for Commonwealth Attorney, asked for the Axios stuff that's been left in. And then the one item is the 15K for the third attorney. Put that in, pull it out of her budget, put that into contingency, and if she gets a qualified person, she has to come to us to ask for that additional funding.
and I believe she'll be okay with that, because she mentioned she might have to come to the board for more money with that.
Dustin, I'm sorry to go backwards. You have any other comments on EMS?
I don't,
Okay.
no, sir.
Let's go to information technology, Ms. Warren.
The big thing there was reducing the consulting time. I reduced down, and I'm gonna actually pull that budget up real quick. I just reduced the 18,000 in consulting time for Mr. Livingston down, instead of 6 months worth of consulting, I did 3. I just felt like maybe 6 months was too long, because if he starts this year doing some, I don't remember, his retirement month is what month?
It's into May.
So, actually, let me pull it up here. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing, is this consulting line item. I went from the $75 an hour times 32 hours a month. For 6 months, I went down to 3 months' worth of consulting for $9,000. That was the main change for that budget, was just reducing consulting time. Everything else stayed the same.
Everybody good on IT?
Yes.
All right, next, Parks and Rec.
By the way, we're gonna decrease numbers because we're not using the outside consultant as much because we have the new.
The IT consultant is, so Bruce right now does the ERP stuff. So he's our only kind of in-house expert.
Yeah, no,
This
but
would
I
allow,
meant- I
I'm
meant
sorry.
When we hired Federico, we were gonna be able to take away money from the outside company that we were using to do a lot of that work.
So the plan there, if memory serves me correct, we said the first year, we wouldn't anticipate reducing anything. It's beyond 1 year where we should be able to take on such
So
things.
27 instead of 26.
I think that's fair evaluation, because now we've had a transitional.
All right.
But Bruce is the main thing, just to reiterate, he's our
No, I got it.
expert in ERP.
Any other questions on IT?
No.
All right,
let's
with
go.
Parks and Rec, really the change here is that part-time to full-time conversion position that they're requesting. They're requesting the part-time person to become full-time, and we took that out and did flat funding on their Parks and Rec contribution from last year. Let me pull up their budget.
And really, it's up to y'all's decision. And I know Clay sits on the PRA board. Again, it's just trying to see, we want you all to tell us if you support that, or if you want the position, we're gonna put it in there. Again, it's just trying to look at the budget. We're squeezing. We haven't even talked revenues yet. You're gonna give me some directions here shortly, so we're trying to be appropriate. No, that's fine. We're trying to be appropriate when it's coming to balancing the budget. And are there certain positions that you want to see either converted from PTE to FTE or new PTEs? And that's the approach we took on all these positions.
What's everybody want to do? We're just, all right, the only comment that came out of Parks and Rec on this, and I guess if we're throwing it, are we truly going to throw this as a county department now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've been told to do that. I'm sorry that hasn't happened yet, but
Everybody
that will
fine.
be
I
achieved
think
this
that's
calendar
Should
year.
be.
Did,
There are some things we'll have to do, bylaws or some things policy-wise, but yeah, that's our directive for this year.
So if we remove that part-time to full-time conversion, it took it from 466 down to 419. I'm gonna round it up, 419.
And one for yourself or in general.
how does it drop it that much? It's
Benefits.
466 to 419.
There's, the VRS
Yeah.
benefits, healthcare.
Thank you.
Yeah, that one I do want to go back. I know what the chairman's going is if you're paying a part-time person, and I don't know how many hours she works, but what is her true cost? And then is there anything else in that 50,000 that's,
It's 47K. I mean, good God, that seems, I mean, I understand what the benefit packet is. It's gotta be something else in there. Is it not? Good Lord.
Benefits are
Oh, yeah, there's
pretty significant.
steep compensation package.
so
What do you want-
basically, do you want the
The
position or
question,
no?
the question is, the real question that I'm trying to remember what Lindsay had to say about this was on the basis that she was saying that if you go with this, it could reduce some of the overtime of some of the other staff that part-time staff already there. I think we go with the recommendation at this point. Anybody? I mean, we're spending time right now, because once that, outdoor facility comes in, they are going to need more staff. I think if anybody's saying that they don't, we're just fooling ourselves.
And I know she mentioned this year as well, based on their increase of numbers and programs,
They are.
is why she was asking for it in advance of even the outdoor recreation center, so.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
And
Well,
I'm okay with it.
leaving it or adding it? Leaving it where it is?
Or you want to add it, correct?
No, I'm thinking leave it. I think leave it with the recommendation at this point until we,
Okay.
and unless we get, and I'll check with her to see if there's any other comments that we should be considering this week.
Okay.
And we'll be ready for this upcoming week. Does
And
that work?
Yes, sir.
And it could be, when you speak to her, and I can speak to her, maybe they could realign their budget to take in that 418, and still be able to convert, but just downsize some other expenses? That could be a
Yes,
possibility?
that will be much more productive than my phone call.
Okay, I can do that.
Do that. That is a good.
So
There you go.
if they can hire within the 418, the board would be okay with that.
Yes. Now we're doing things. All right, now, let's go to animal control.
Go ahead, I'll let you speak to that one.
I just asked Brian to hand out, I asked Greg for a schedule. Supervisor Dawson, I know you and I had talked, and it's really about how would this position actually work? I know he has a schedule of 24 hours. I think maybe initially the budget had it at 28. So let's just work with the schedule he's got in front of us. The primary role, and this would be adding, this is a requested adding a PTE that does not exist. So their primary responsibility would be animal control, either working during the day or participating in the on-call schedule, which a lot of stuff's after hours. And then there are a few days in there programmed in for facility maintenance. So this has been built in 4-week increments, so you can see it kind of rotating. New person is in a, I don't know what color that is, if we want to call it peach, if that works for you. So they work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but on Wednesday and Thursday, they're also, they're working AC, and then on Fridays, they're at facilities and maintenance. You flip to the next week, they're working at facilities and maintenance on Wednesday, Thursday, and then they're working animal control Friday, and then they're not working during the day, but they're on call that Saturday and Sunday. Continuing through that week, they work as animal control Wednesday, Thursday, and then they would be working facility maintenance on that Friday, no on-call responsibilities. And then the last week they're showing in rotation, they would have 2 days with facility maintenance, and then work a day for animal control on that Friday, and then be on call that Saturday. So balancing out on call between working. Initially, when I spoke to them, even as late as today, it was, well, it would be dependent on when they show up what we need them to do. And I said, that's a little difficult. It's already going to be a specialty of a position. Let's try to get it where we know. Like, we know when you and Ian are working, and we know that you need to rotate the call. So right now, it's Greg and Ian that's just on call and also covering the normal operations. He feels like this could help with some overtime, some on-call. I think moving forward, I'm going to have some internal conversation with the Sheriff's Department, see if we can get some help there. A lot of after-hour stuff, whether it's cows or if it's dogs running down the woods in the middle of the night, I don't think we should be calling out animal control unless the dog's bitten somebody. So we're going to try to do some things internally, because I don't want my staff, or our staff, excuse me, it's just inappropriate use of overtime, putting them in a dangerous spot, and you can't do nothing at night anyway. Wait till the next day. So there's some internal controls we're going to try first, but at least if you want to see how this would work, this is what they're telling me. Both he and Mooney have talked about this. This is how this position will be utilized. So in this budget, though, I think to Jennifer, we have removed that. Is that correct?
Correct. We've removed any new positions.
I think it's something, I think it's a step in the right direction, but maybe not this year. And because it is such a tight year, but my point is, they're thinking, like the overtime, but my only concern is, with part-time folks, he's got some on-call. What if he had a weekend that was just crazy and he had a bunch of on-call? What happens, like, I know when you get to a certain amount of hours, doesn't full-time things have to happen?
Yeah, and I think that's an aggregate. I mean, they look at monthly averages, but I think there's also an annual aggregate, which you would have to consider. And I believe in that there, you would have to monitor where Greg would see those hours and say, oh, okay, it's just me and Ian from this point, or less new person. You would just have to balance it out.
Is there any savings on the facility side by doing this?
I honestly don't know if
When
there
we
is.
talked to Mooney, when I spoke to Mooney, his thoughts were, well, if we have a big snow or a big, again, weather issue where they had a ton of overtime, if there was another person that could help offset and lower some of that overtime. So,
And it, what's going on over there?
And why are your keys pink?
Yeah, that's a good question.
All right.
Okay. The other thing on that, if you get Mooney, indoor court, whoever, take one of them out of the mower. I will say, the benefits of Mooney not being on the motor, we put him on a lot of electrical stuff for this renovation with generator and that modular building and those, other things. Two, also include some painting and different things, so the more we take him off a mower, he's beneficial doing that. He's done things over Parks and Rec. You've probably seen his own equipment over times, but he's dug trenches, whether it's irrigation or doing wiring for food trucks so they can have them at those events. So there is value there. Can I put a number on it? Not right now, but that's how I see this position added would benefit him to do other things. But to your point, you said maybe not this year, and it is a tight year.
No, just, unless, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no.
No, you're right, Supervisor Dawson's right, but unless there was a way to show that we're gonna save that money from the overtime, if you can look at the last 3 years and saying, by hiring this part-time, each year we would have saved this money, and it would have paid for the part-time person. If we can't do that, then we should wait.
I agree. Like I said, if I could see a real number, like we're spending this much in overtime, and I can justify it.
No, that's not gonna happen.
Nothing's.
No, it's gonna get more expensive. I mean, that's just the reality
I
of the
can-
situation.
I can strive for that next year, because that's normally how we would present a justification. It's
Yeah,
just, it's a tough year, and if we're gonna get ready to talk about any consideration of tax increases, I can't put new positions
Agreed.
up in front of
What
y'all.
about a part-time position for just animal control? Does that do anything?
He would, yeah, it's primary.
Rotate between the two?
It,
But
still
it's
part-time.
28
Yeah,
hours,
all right.
it's still no benefits.
yeah, here's the thing on that.
Yeah, it is part-time.
If you've got three primary people on shift all the time, you really gotta question your staffing levels. You know, but the reason why, if you give extra hours and using them dually, you may stand a chance of getting someone for 24 hours or 28 hours versus trying to hire somebody for 12 or 16. We're struggling with that on the animal shelter side. We've got a few applicants, but I think like that was a 16-hour-a-week position. So,
All right, y'all wanna leave this one off this year? There you go, let's move on.
So that's all the yellows. I would like to mention I want to talk about CSA real quick. I know there is a need for an increase of around 221,000. That was what was presented. However, the more I got to thinking about CSA and their budget and the fluctuation year to year, we have a joint services stabilization fund, and I calculated it, and it comes out to roughly $360,000. My thought was to leave their funding the same, just like we did with DSS or VPA, and letting them know that we have this stabilization fund we can go to later on in the year like we did this time. That was my thought.
Great.
All right, so that's 221,000 reduction. The rest of them, I'll go back, let's go to the school. My justification, I think Jonathan and I chatted about this, and I want him to mention some of the other things about this, but the COLA, everybody's, you know, we have to give COLA 3%. Beyond that, the only other thing I've been thinking about is how much remaining funds they have every year. There seems to be, there seems to be quite a bit of remaining funds year to year from their operating, and I assume that might be because of unfilled positions. And so I don't know if they plan attrition. I don't know how they do that. But I took the approach of, if they were to plan some attrition into their budget, could they go down to the 3%? And save $309,000. And Jonathan has a caveat to that. He would like to
yes,
to talk to.
beekeeper over here. You're welcome. It's dead. Might have to get a wipe for that, but that's okay. So The other thing, and thank you, Jennifer, again, tough budget year. They were initially asking for 677. There's really no method where we're suggesting cut this line item of their budget. That's their entity, run the schools however they choose to run them. But trying to figure out, all right, what can we fund? You know, the 3% COLA, as Jennifer said, okay. So right now, the administrative recommendation reduces the 677 down to a 309, 632. However, we are uncertain, unless he took some action yesterday or for something new today, or the General Assembly, the lifting of the cap for school support positions. So the General Assembly passed that, and we got a number. Every county got a number of what new monies that would mean to the localities. Ours was shortly over $200-some thousand. That monies, it wasn't a veto by the governor, how it was explained to us by our legislative aide, and I believe I passed this on via email to you all, is he's made a budget adjustment. So he's moved some money out of that. We don't know how much that would affect us. We know that we won't be receiving the 200-some thousand unless there's an override action by the General Assembly. So to be continued.
And that only requires a simple majority of both houses for a line item override, correct?
I believe that is correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Then this might get restored.
So right now, it's at 309. I'd say if that 200K is not coming, maybe you want to get considerations to add that amount on top of the 309. But that's the reason why we took it down. Again, we're looking at everything, and I realize, and I haven't had this conversation with Anna, and I'm not trying to create productive issues. It's just, we're looking at overall, and just like we're gonna have conversations with other departments, I'll have one with her, but we're trying to figure out what can we afford. You've given us a list of things that you believe your increases will cover. We're saying, well, this is what we believe we can afford to give, and then they can choose however they spend it. So, again, not trying to run the schools, we're just trying to be conservative and responsible of how we work towards budgeting, or balancing the budget, excuse me.
Well, what do y'all think?
I'll add to that too, that you could do a contingency line item for the schools. I mean, it's still kind of the same effect. It's not, with contingency, you're still increasing your balance. You're still having to pull unassigned fund balance to balance the budget, but just an option.
And if you, whether you want to deliberate now or if you want to wait till the end where Jennifer's got a scenario here with these cuts or adjustments, here's your open appropriation, and with 3 cents, you heard her say it here earlier, so you may want to come back to that.
Yeah.
But it would either be more open appropriation from fund balance or taxes.
Let's leave it where it is. We'll see if Ms. Warren can come up with a scenario that includes something to put in contingency.
309 is where it is?
Correct, new monies.
Ms. Warren, do you know how much we could pull from our unassigned fund balance and still be compliant?
We can run those numbers, and Davenport has, we would just have to calculate the ratios, but we can run that number for next week. Yes. I will mention that we started at a 9% increase with department requests. If you look at last year actuals, FY '24, our increase from the previous year was 4.7%, 5%. I'm gonna round it, 5% increase from year to year. So with the changes we've made, we've reduced expenses down $1 million, and we're at that 5%, which is much more manageable than 8.9 or 9%. Again, we haven't spoken to anyone yet about that, about the department heads, but this was our first go around with a way to shave off $1 million from opening balance appropriation.
And I would just add to that, I mean, excellent job, by the way. I would just add to that, I mean, and Mr. Jewett, you showed, you know, the 4.5, kind of where we've been revenue, and 4.96, almost 5 on expenditures. If we had that same revenue projection stream, this would be great. We probably wouldn't be talking about taxes. But this number getting here, we're still at probably a 1 or 1.5% increase of revenue from last year.
Yeah, so for revenues, If we were not to raise taxes, we would pretty much be flat. Very minimal growth from one year to the other, as you know from the revenue presentation that the treasurer did. Raising here and there, I looked at, and I need to speak to the treasurer and the commissioner about this, or especially the treasurer. We looked at revenues through last week to see where they're tracking. And there were some items that I think we can raise, and some categories outside of real estate that I think we can raise slightly. And I will speak to the treasurer just to make sure she agrees. But overall, the scenario I put together to balance the budget was increasing those slightly and a 3-cent increase in real estate taxes and leaving. And the other fees, the only fees that increased were what we discussed as far as the animal shelter adoption fees and the waste collection fees, estimating those increasing slightly. But to balance it within 200,000, it's not zero, but a lot better than 2.6 million. It was 3-cent tax increase with this $1 million in expense deductions, taking that.
A little bird just asked me, rhymes with cardinal, but he wanted to know our health insurance. Our health insurance costs are the raise in the health insurance costs across the board. Are we splitting that with employees, or do we pay the whole thing?
I did an analysis on what the extra is. Right now, we have it in the budget as the county paying that 3.9% increase. I do have the numbers that I can show the board next week. I think one is like $80,000, or maybe $60,000 to $80,000 in savings if you passed along a percentage of that to the employees. So it was roughly, whether you do it at a certain tier or you cover 50% of it, 75% of it, I'd have an analysis
Have we
on.
done that in the past? I mean, when we had these rate increases?
It's been years ago, probably going back to 2012, 2013, where we did some splitting. But generally, even in those years, instead of merits or COLAs, we had to choose either that, or the board made a decision, either choose that and don't pick up the insurance increase, or choose the insurance increase or premium coverage and not do the merit. And there were years, and correct me, Mr. Jackson, I'm wrong, where we chose to cover the insurance because, in my opinion, you're stopping the bleeding of the paycheck. You may not get an increase in merit, but if you're picking up the insurance, then your paycheck's not shrinking. That was the train of thought, so.
And one other item I wanted to mention, you're going to notice a line item about halfway down called County Admin Radio Tower Maintenance. I pulled that out of the county administrator. I mean, it's still in their budget, but I separated between county administration and county administration radio tower. I think that's important for the public to see that the budget is, the radio tower is now costing us $297,000. So that is a $300,000 increase to our operating budget from last year that we are seeing. So.
We're looking at just the 5.1% increase. And if you look at the current rate of inflation, that's about a 2% real increase in spending. Which is something we need to think about, because, that's as much a contributory to our spending trajectory as inflation is. And what number do we try to shoot for based upon population, based upon increased services? I don't know that answer. But, this is where we need to be going, not that doggone multi-million-dollar deficit we were looking at. It just wasn't realistic.
The court, there is nobody that wants to do any type of tax increase in any way. 1 or 2 cents is certainly more palatable than 3, and by a substantial amount. And utilizing a heavier beginning appropriation instead of taxing out all the way will still give us a little bit of protection, but certainly not overtax the citizens we've got. The last time we did 1 cent, it was like we were stealing kids from families. It's heavy.
And if I could add one more thing, I do think the challenge again for the county is we need to start being able to have additional revenues to fund capital.
Yep.
Right now, that's non-existent. And we've got to be able to do that down the road within the next few years. We can't, if we have a big $30 million project, construction project, and we're already in debt, we can't take on more debt. So the goal would be for the county to raise enough tax money to cover both operating and within the next few years, the capital needs, except for the large construction projects that we know we need to take debt on for. But the basic capital needs of vehicles, equipment, repairs.
And hopefully that's where the utility company, the water and sewer utility company would be able to help on that. I can't sit here and give you a revenue uptick projection on when that occurs, but there's no doubt that will foster an environment that will allow more business to come. So that's on the horizon. We've been told at least 2027. So
That is an optimistic but good comment.
Optimistic. I said told, not me saying, but we were told.
That's a good comment. All right, anybody else have anything on this? Let's talk admin fees real quick, Jonathan.
There were 2 proposed administrative fee changes. Again, you have a litany of different fees, and the ones that I want to focus on is dog adoption fee. Currently, it's at $95. Our animal shelter manager would like to see a $5 increase there. And then the other was the commercial hauling rate for at our transfer station. And the recommendation, I believe you all may have concurred, but correct me if I'm wrong, is to take it up to the 70 cents. Greene County was at 70 cents per ton. Excuse me, $70. Whew, boy, I just cut our revenue and myself, moved my budget down. $70 per ton, up from 65. We're currently, Greene's at 70, Culpeper's at 71.50. Why do we choose those 2? Because they have transfer station. Other localities may have landfills, so it's hard to compare. I think it's within reason. It's going to help us some on our revenues, which our operation cost for transfer station is going up year over year anyway. We're probably back to, if not slightly over, our 2012 numbers. So we've had that benefit over the years, but just cost of everything going up. So those are your 2 administrative fees I'd like to propose to advertise for increase. Is moving.
Can I just ask a quick question on that? How many dogs are we talking about, or cats? Or it's $95. I would think like even $125 would be, somebody was adopting a dog would pay $125 as opposed to $100.
What I don't have in front of me, and I should have, so I apologize.
But is it real money? I'm wondering. There's definitely rep monies in that. She'll pull that up, and shame on me for not having the surrounding counties' rates in front of me. I do know when I talked to Ned about it, we didn't want to price ourselves out of the market because we have a good flow of folks that are coming to our shelter. They're driving past Culpeper to come here. It's amazing how they're able to adopt dogs, cats as well, but dogs out. So we just need to recoup some of that fee. The veterinarian cost, we have an increase this year. We're taking it up to $60,000, a $20,000 increase. So that was kind of the move on that is don't price ourselves out of the market where we're not able to adopt dogs, but try to capture some additional revenues that'll help offset those veterinarian expenses.
Anybody have any issue with these adjustment of fees? Judd, you gonna think about dog adoption?
Just a little bit more.
No.
If that's a real number.
Well, I'm looking now, it looks like our actuals for FY '24 for shelter adoptions was $14,000. I don't know if there's other line items in the revenue.
No, I mean, you'd have adoption, and then there's, like, we have boarding fees and things like that.
Yeah, boarding fees, that's another line item, but it's not,
Again, it
It's
moves
really
the
just-
needle to help us with that $60,000 veterinarian expenses.
$150 to $350.
trying to get that veterinary increase that we're facing more. But I do know that was, this year, our shelter adoptions are, year-to-date are higher, so.
So did you hear about Culpepper's 150 to 350?
Oh, wow.
Breed of the dog and the age and medical conditions. Yeah.
For cats, cats are 75, dogs are 95.
Why are you paying for cats?
That's just got our name on it, but that's theirs.
I still think the question is
But
relevant.
it's just trying to recover. It's not, it's, again, trying not to price ourselves. I mean, if y'all want to go up higher than $5, you certainly can. She's had success out there, so that's what we're trying to do. Just slight increase to bring in some to help offset veterinary costs, but not price ourselves for the market where, you know, folks start using other shelters for
Well,
adoption.
it's 150 at Culpeper, so at the minimum. Let's see what green is. Anyway, we do need to raise it.
Right. I mean, if there's a number, if, you know, if you want to look at 110 or, you know, just let me know. But again, just, that was their recommendation, and Annette lives in that world. I don't deal with the general public and the amount of time or, you know, efforts it takes in adopting an animal.
But there is a range for all these guys. So we only have one cost, whether it's a puppy or an older dog? Or is it, do you know? Because it's, in green, it's 100 to 275.
So there's a small, no, it's just boarding fee difference. No, we don't have a distinctions between it now. I know years ago, we did have a distinction between the size,
So that's,
but we don't
that's something we
specify.
can look at. Right now, the puppies are up to 275, adult dogs, 8 months, 8 years, 225, and senior dogs are 100. So we could look at it that way and make money across the board, but older dogs need to be adopted, so keep that cost low. Puppies, cute puppies, jack up that price. Anyway.
Well, like,
We'd have to go back.
to like
I'm not
a-
gonna meet
go to
the
like
advertisement
100 and a
if
half
we're
to keep us
getting too
competitive
out
on
of.
puppies?
Yeah.
Because isn't it two, what, you said 2 and a quarter for?
275 for a,
Oh, yeah.
275 for up to 8 months old.
So 150 is a hell of a deal.
Yeah. Anyway, just ask her to think about doing that range. That might make sense. She might get some of her older dogs adopted faster. She has no problem adopting dogs.
No,
She
they're doing very
she
well.
does, and again, the primary objective here is trying to find a way, you know, just like a commercial hauling. We know we're lower than others, but what's the reason to raise it besides that is we need to help offset our disposal costs and our fuel costs. This here was just her recommendation, so we can look at 2 tiers if that's the board's, we had it years ago. I can't remember why we went away from it. This may be a more simpler approach, but that was their recommendation, was the
Let's
$5.
try it. Let's try a tiered deal. See if we can get something going. Does that crush you on?
It's just the
advertising?
advertisement, but technically, I guess I could maybe move that to the budget public hearing. I don't know, but we'll work towards that direction of a tiered approach.
Hate to go backwards. Parks and Rec may need that extra full-time position. Is there a way we could run a scenario, Ms. Warren, with that in there and see if there's something we could, at the next meeting, if that's just one option we'd have?
Do they have a part-time person that can go into full-time?
Yeah.
Yes, they have it, yeah, they want that person to convert.
So raising the, back up to the 466 number?
I was
Parks and-
hoping you could get her cheaper than that.
Oh,
Maybe
I'm
you'd
sorry.
find
So
some
here's the issue with
efficiencies.
that. We have a, you know, being under the county's payroll and being under the county comp study, and we have to have a minimum for her pay grade. And so we had to choose a pay grade for that position in line with our other pay grades. And so that's where the salary came from, was our pay grades.
Is, I mean, I know this is getting in the weeds, but I mean, is it mid-salary where we're landing, or are we starting at the?
I think it's the very low end of
Okay.
the pay scale, yes.
It wasn't the conversation talking about Parks and Rec, is you're gonna reach out and see if you can find some other efficiencies.
Yes, that's what I'd like to do.
So-
That's right. I'm gonna,
Could we go both ways? See if
Yes.
see with the addition to that full-time position,
okay,
with efficiencies, and then without that part-time going to full-time, including these same efficiencies.
absolutely. I have a note.
Does that
So
work for everybody?
418 is the goal, and if full-time conversion is the goal too, but just try to get it down. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
I got it.
Yes, ma'am. All right, anybody else got anything on anything really?
Well, where are we at as far as personal property tax? I mean, I'm just asking, I'm not asking for an answer, but
We did not program, so any of the balancing the budget that we talked here tonight was based on real estate solely. We did not look at the, raising the personal properties from, like 10 cents, I think Brian
Was
said,
100,
brought
yeah.
150,000 or something like that for every dime or every 10 cents. We didn't propose that. If you all want to consider a different, maybe a little here, a little there, please let us know.
Enough to the table to make it worth justifying.
well, and the other thing is in the back of my mind, where are used cars values going to go up? Are they gonna go up because of tariffs and new car prices significantly? Are they gonna remain flat? That's just kind of in the back of my mind with the rate.
I would agree with you, Mr. Jewett. I was thinking the same thing. With the tariffs, are we gonna see a decline, a big decline in new purchased vehicles? And then how does that affect that pool of
You're
revenue?
real gun shy, aren't you?
But I don't know if we have a lot of brand-new vehicles in this,
Okay.
in the county, but
And you'd have to look at, Brian's got a list, at least gives you a number for each category, whether it's motorcycle, trucks, or whatever. And it's interesting another B? We'll have to.
Got an
look at that.
infestation.
Yeah, I got
Keep
something
going.
going on there. At least there, I wish there were honeybees. We'd get something out of it.
That's correct.
But we can look at that, sir, if you want us to. That was the big thing, is that the real estate gives you the big bang for the buck. Occasionally, I'll get feedback even from some former supervisors. You know, it's the real estate, you catch, everybody and versus personal property. But certainly, we can look at it if you want.
Well,
I think
it's
we're
too
still at the
volatile right now.
$3.40 mark.
It was 360.
What's that?
Wasn't it?
Initially, we
before
were
reduced
$3.60,
it
you went to
down,
$3,
that's
and then
right.
you
Now
went
we're
back to
down
$3.40,
some,
but
yeah.
still below the initial $3.60.
Let's,
But that is a rate I would need to know if you would like to, so I can advertise appropriately.
what do y'all wanna do?
I'd be tempted to leave it this year because we don't know what's gonna happen to
Right.
valuations of used.
And the valuations jump, you'll get the benefit, you'll get it on the revenue side. Now, you won't get it at the $3.50 rate, for example, you get it at $3.40, but you'll see that jump which we had that 1 year before we made the adjustment.
I think we've given Ms. Warren, Jonathan, Brian enough that they can run some scenarios and come back this next week, and we should be pretty close to solidifying this thing, this upcoming week.
Can you do it by tomorrow?
I won't sleep.
Anybody else got anything, any questions, anything, by all means?
I just wanna express my appreciation
my
to Ms.
gosh.
Warren and Jonathan and Brian. I mean, for, really having to thread a needle this time.
I'd
Yeah.
throw Kim in on that.
We look forward for
I'd
these.
throw Kim in on that. too.
Kim's on everything.
That's right.
Come
that's
check
why-
on us after, we've got to talk to departments, this coming
Well,
week,
tell the
so,
departments that's kind of where we're headed.
right.
And
Right.
Gracie's not running from B, she's just so excited
Yeah,
about the progress we're making.
You have over there. All right, let's talk about this, and this, we have talked about this. We have talked about this multiple times. Does anybody have any issue with this resolution? Jonathan's gonna tell you how, isn't the date wrong?
So, well, no, I overlooked, not intentionally, but June 19th was the motion that I asked for that you voted on to extend the tax deadline from the normal June 5th date to June 19th. I did not catch that night on that action that June 19th is actually a holiday. So I ate some crow and talked to the commissioner and treasurer and informed Jennifer, and June 20th would be the date that we would ask you to extend for. We did go back in time, because Kim and I like to do that, and this was done prior by resolution, so a resolution was prepared to give you the history of when the dates were set in 2008. And what we're asking is for the tax due date to be extended to June 20th, 2025.
Permanently.
Permanently, yes. Well, this year, we won't ask for another. I mean, every year, your cycle is December the 5th and June 5th. This year, we're saying, look, we're not gonna come back again. Sorry for the mess up for the 19th, but June 20th is the new date for, yeah.
Anybody have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution number 2025-3.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign. All right, good. Next week should be exciting as well. We just get it on Thursday, you're gonna get it all week.
I will, depending on we're gonna work diligently, towards that administrative fee. If I can get that accomplished to advertise for the 22nd, we will. If not, I may have to put that out to try to catch one of your other regular meetings, so you can have the public hearing for that.
Fine.
So, no sweat, we just need to do our proper research.
Anybody else have anything? Public comment.
For the equalized rate?
No, not the equalized rate. You were saying you needed to be able to advertise tomorrow. What happened?
Did we say
No.
2 pennies on
No,
that?
we didn't say we were gonna advertise, we were gonna wait till scenarios next week and
If
then
we
we were
wait-
gonna advertise.
If we wait, which we can, if we wait till next week,
How
we
does
may
that-
have to have a special meeting or something for your public hearings, which is, if that's what you wanna do, that's fine.
What do you wanna advertise for? You wanna advertise for?
Aren't we all gonna be together Monday anyways?
You're gonna be at,
Oh, no, you can't do, you can't do that.
I won't be there anyway.
Um,
That matters. Teach that day.
I think the recommendation was to advertise the 3 pennies.
At
And
52.
at 52, and to go down from
Right,
there.
Try to go back.
Yeah, no,
Down.
certainly. Let's
Yes.
have, is everybody on board on 52?
Yep.
On 52, and then the potential adoption fees, and the, transfer station fees. Does that work?
Works.
Let's do that. Then we can hit a regular meeting, not have a special meeting, because that's less convenient for everybody.
okay.
Does that work?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's,
Thank you all. This is exactly the direction that we needed to get this to a finalized. I think next week, just looking at your budget calendar, next Thursday, I think is when we're gonna have a draft budget, for you all, so.
all right, back to public comment. Nobody's commenting online. That's a shame. Thank y'all for sticking with us. Sorry about the bees. Trying not to eat too much sugar. Anybody else got anything? What would y'all like to do?
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Thank y'all.
Thank you.